Good.
That's the,
Okay.
court. That's what we think.
All right, good morning, everyone. We're gonna get started with the Commissioners' meeting for March 21st. We have a quorum present. Commissioner Hostetter is absent, but two commissioners are in attendance, so we can do business. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Baker Tilly, what do we have to that?
We have to sign that.
Okay? This is something that we were supposed to sign last time and then overlooked it, right?
Yes, it needs to be signed. I just put it on the screen for you.
Sure. So this is regarding municipal advisory and consulting services.
It was approved.
We agreed to do this a year and a half ago, and the company couldn't find the signed documents. We were trying to get it. And should I take the date here?
I don't know that answer.
Mr. Bird, if you're ready, you can come on up as well. You want to see anything with it?
So,
It's single signature.
Sign it.
No. So we got into a contract with them in 2019. We just needed, they want the signed document.
Okay.
And Steve, do we ever take any of our vehicles from the highway department to you boards for any services or anything?
Service, the new brine truck that we now have would qualify, yeah.
I'm gonna say there's a $25 off thing that they sent us here if we go out by June. You think we'd use it?
That's a possibility.
If not, I give it to the sheriff, but
I have to let me see if the vehicle clock is fixed right now.
you should see him.
I'll put it in the box.
Okay. Hopefully they'll use it, save $25. Thank you.
I think Ann, Sherry sent you that for you. I have it, I advertised that already.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Alexander Ricci from Norfolk Southern is scheduled to speak to us this morning at 9:15. He's here to present Norfolk Southern's position regarding the permanent closure of a couple of proposed locations and the incentive offer for the closure. So I did speak with the town of Birdseye, let them know that this was more of an informational meeting here, and if it goes to a public hearing, they would like to attend.
So I looked at the map again at those two roads, and I think from your previous comment, let's start the one on, what's the King Street?
Yes,
So King Street has maybe 3 or 4 residents, right? Or 3 or 4 homes?
I believe there's 2 homes.
Oh, there's just 2 homes there? Okay. And he was saying something about, I guess my first question is, do we manage that road? Do we pave that road?
Yeah.
We're in charge of that road.
Mhm.
So he was saying that it's a subpar road if they go one direction, but if not, if they go the other direction?
It is a roughly 13 to 14 foot wide gravel road.
Okay.
We do maintain it. We'll send our boom mower back there to keep the brush. There's a lot of brush on the north side of that roadway. Try to keep it cut back as best we can. But yeah, it's substandard because it's not a 2-lane. It's basically a lane that goes back. So.
Is there any reason that the county would want to widen or upgrade that road? If we close the other entrance or not?
I don't feel that would be all that necessary because like there's just two homes. And one of them isn't even that far from the town border. Now, if we would want to upgrade that and maybe just make it a single lane chip and seal that's going to never go anywhere beyond that, that would be obviously your call, but that's something we could do for the landowners there. So
What kind of expense would we look at for, I mean, how long is it? Do you think it's 400 meters?
I think it was about 1,000 feet, I believe, 1,000 feet. So I don't know, probably in the $10,000 neighborhood, just roughly speaking.
So really, if we took the incentive that they give us, invest that incentive in the road, that might be a solution.
Mhm.
What do you think, Mr. Brown?
And I wouldn't have a problem doing that. What part of the road is the narrow part?
On the county side.
Okay, where's the city-county line?
I believe it's where that section line right here. And I think once you run outside of those trees.
Okay. I need to go up and drive it, I guess, and make sure. So in the trees here, and coming out of the trees is what you're saying is substandard, or as
Yeah,
narrow,
pretty much the whole thing.
the whole thing?
The whole thing is.
So it's a 2-lane road on that first section,
Okay.
is that right?
On the city portion?
Yes, down. I don't know.
Maybe 18, 19 feet.
Okay.
And I'm just assuming on there, I didn't really measure it. No more what the gravel is, and it's not much.
And for the record, do you remember what the incentive would be if we, again, if we closed the single road or if we closed both? Or the overpass?
From what I remember, in our discussions before, one closure could get us, I'm thinking he said 20 to 25, both of them maybe 50 to 65. I don't know. And I think that's some of the information that he'll propose. They've got some ways of coming up with these numbers, different formulas and things like that, so.
And then on the other one, is that, again, I was reviewing it, and he said it would make it miles longer for someone to go a certain way.
Yeah, I guess that's a
I didn't
horseman's
get that.
park.
I'd say I didn't understand that
I didn't
either.
either.
Yeah, he said there's a horseman's park back there, and I know there's a lot of trail rides and everything, and he said that a lot of that traffic comes down through there and goes to the horseman's park, and if they can't utilize and get out there, that they would have to do a lot of driving to get to it, so.
If they're coming from the east, yes, they have to come in all the way into town, which is another quarter of a mile, half a mile.
Yeah.
I don't know what that distance is.
And I don't know if it just,
And then take First Street back out.
Obviously, I'm gonna let him speak for himself.
Sure.
But, I feel if, even if somebody's going back there with a truck and a horse trailer, even just a small one. And I don't know if you've all gone out there to see it yourself. I know I've brought some photos of the area, and it's really tight, and there's no good way of seeing any oncoming train traffic. I mean, you don't pull up square because it's in a horseshoe.
Mhm.
And the center of that horseshoe is where the crossing is, so there's no good way of seeing anything coming from the west.
Of course, we don't want to do anything that'll hurt the town of Birdseye, but we also want to,
Yeah.
we'll hear what the railroad folks have to say.
And if it goes farther, if the commissioners decide that they want to put it to a public hearing and get the public's input, I welcomed him at that point, but he felt that a lot of the citizens there in Birdseye would as well be opposed to it. So.
But yeah, on your point about whatever incentive we get for closing it, I wouldn't be opposed at all to putting that back into somehow improving the rest of the infrastructure there.
And if we did something in the east side, we could we could have Norfolk as well provide like a hammerhead turnaround or some sort of a cul-de-sac or something, where a bus turnaround or, snow plows or anything like that has a way to turn around and get out. Because once
To
you
plan
come
for the
from-
future too, if another couple homes go back there.
Well, I think most of that ground is owned by the federal government. So I don't see any additional homes back there, but,
You're talking about the one on the east side of Riverside.
right.
I was talking, but yeah, the same thing.
Yeah, that's.
You're right, though, it is all government land.
It's all government land over there. And, I don't even see a purpose for the road. If we were to close the crossing, I don't even see a purpose for the road going up to the crossing from First Street up. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so he'll be coming in at 9:15. We'll talk more. The LTAP drainage course is going on. It's going well this morning. Steve Moriarty, he is the superintendent for Kosciuszko County. I have to keep thinking to make sure I say that right. But very good friend of mine, superintendent of the highway department there, and he's putting that on this morning. So the guys will get something good out of that. Bridge Service Truck 303. As a crew was traveling in from a job site here just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, the engine blew. A valve busted inside of the engine compartment and severely damaged the cylinder wall and the piston and quite a few other components within the block itself, therefore making a overhaul impossible. So the engine at that time only had 127,102 miles. Now this is pretty much the same type of engine as went bad in our brine truck. Only difference between the brine truck and the service truck that we have now on the bridge is that the body and the frame and everything is in much better shape. The brine truck obviously was rusted and got severe damage to the frame. So I, wasn't planning on putting any money into it, and we had it traded anyhow. So, but in this case here, I decided to look into getting a remanufactured engine, get it in the truck, which it is now back in service. So it's on the road again. The cost of this repair was near $13,500. So it's up and running. And just for an FYI, these two engines that went down are basically the same ones that are being provided in single axle dump trucks when we had this issue several years ago. I'm talking about our specifications. So I just wanted to point that out. So
Did we do the work to replace the engine, or did we take it somewhere?
we did. Yeah. Basically, we purchased a new remand engine and our guys put it in. So
When you say on that last statement, these two engines are the same as what is being used in single axle trucks now, but we're speccing something what we think is better.
as far as an engine and a transmission.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I recall what you're talking about. There were some vendors who thought we were speccing more than we needed.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why, and it's now coming, you can see that now, so I just wanted to put a reminder out there. We put our specs together, we do a lot of research and a lot of thinking, and that's how we put our specs together, so it has nothing to do with anybody or anything. This is just what we feel works best, and, don't need to say much beyond that, so. Okay, next item, in order to cover this appropriation, I'm asking for an additional appropriation to provide additional maintenance for the year. I'd like to ask for an additional appropriation of $17,000 in the Cume Bridge Fund, which will be placed in equipment repair maintenance. Okay.
Any opposition, Commissioner Brown?
No.
I move that we support moving forward, or allowing Steve to move forward with the additional appropriation request.
I'll second
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
that.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. And final thing, our annual report is complete. Everything matches up with what Sandy has. Our mileage this year is 661.39 miles total. 383.08 is asphalt. 146.44 is chip and seal miles. 108.14 is gravel miles, and we did have a conversion of 2.04 miles of gravel that went to chip and seal due to our improvement program, which took place last year.
And those numbers, is that each way? On the road, that's sort of,
It's a road mile, not a lane mile, but a road mile.
so we have twice that many lane miles.
Yes. And the last thing, and maybe some of the public may not be aware, we also have 23.73 miles of dirt road. So,
I thought it was more than that. We did improve on the dirt roads.
Yes, we did.
Too.
yes, we did.
That's rock to the,
Uh-huh.
is that something we need to sign?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's on the very back.
So is this the receipts for the other things for Gateway? This is part of that? It goes into the state?
Yes. And this also gets sent to LTAP. They utilize this with a lot of numbers that are being used for maintenance numbers on county roads, that type of thing. And we also have our Pacer ratings online as well, so that's all viewable. So they use this information to help determine what kind of shape our road's in, and the real need for the money that we're getting.
Mhm.
Brent has to sign his yet, and then as soon as Nick does, we'll get you a copy, or do you want this original, or how do you want that?
You know what, I think I just got a copy.
Okay.
I'll move that we approve the 2021 annual operational report for local roads, streets, and bridges.
I'll second that.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And that's all I've got, unless you've got anything for me.
Nope.
Oh, I did,
You did this, or does Sandy do that?
I did speak with a member of the reclamation outfit that's looking to do something at the mine. They were supposed to be in town this past week to speak with landowners with regards to how the reclamation is going to be working out for them. I was out of road school this past week, so he's in town every 2 weeks. So sometime next week, he and I are going to get together so we can go over some of the items that we're talking about. So
Now, who does this firm
I think it's
work
Indemnity,
for?
Indemnity National. It's for the bond company.
The bond company.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just take this one step at a time.
Thank you. We have the minutes from the March 7th meeting. Do you have any changes or any corrections? I'll move that we approve the March 7th meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We have the payroll. Any changes or questions on that?
I don't.
Move that we approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
motion carries. And then we have the claims against the county. I didn't have any problems with those.
I didn't either.
Okay, I move that we approve claims.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
motion carries. Cindy, for the April 4th meeting, can you please add an agenda item for 10 minutes for service award discussion? Commissioner Brown, did you get my email? I just
I
sent it
did,
yesterday.
and, as you said, I think it was a good start. Might tweak a couple of things maybe, but no, it's very good. Very good start, and I support the overall concept of it. One of the things I love, and I don't have a suggestion on this yet, but the naming of the award.
I had two suggestions and I didn't know what
Yeah.
those were.
But is there some kind of unique thing about Du Bois County that could be incorporated into the name of the award or something like that? I don't know.
And for those in attendance, if you weren't here previously, we were just having a discussion on if we could give an award, maybe yearly or at some point, to recognize people that do exemplary things in the community, or a community excellence award or commissioner's award of excellence, something, just because there's people that serve on boards, people that serve as firefighters or serve in a lot of capacities and they never get any recognition. And I thought that this was a way to at least give some of those folks a public thank you for the private work that they do.
Yeah, it would kind of be in line with what the state does, their Sagamore Award and the other awards that they get. Just something a little bit more on the local level. Whether it would emphasize a lifetime of service or a service on a particular project or endeavor might be something that we look at as well, as to how we want to emphasize that.
We've dealt with people, for example, on conservancy districts. Who's on your conservancy district? Nobody knows, but some of those people have served for decades doing silent work that helps keep the community running. It'd be nice to recognize those folks. Looks like Chelsea showed up.
I'm sorry.
No, you're early.
3 minutes early.
I was in the staff meeting, I looked at the clock, all of a sudden, oh my God, ended meeting, I have to go.
So I'm just grateful you're here because we're just filling time. This miscellaneous today.
Ooh, good. All right, we've got a few things for you.
Thank you.
Yes, so this is the official annual report. It was on our county report as a QR code, so that's the official printed one.
It's not here this morning.
Okay, I'll see it with Sandy then. So much. Okay, so I also apologize, I barely have a voice, so hopefully it's strong enough you hear me. I lost it after presenting last Wednesday and it has not returned. It doesn't want to, it's having a vacation apparently. So I'll do my best here. Couple things that are upcoming that we're really excited about that we just want to tell you about. One is happening tomorrow with our 4-H group. We've teamed up with Du Bois REC and they're going to provide an electric spark club. So teaching kids all about electricity 4-H has an electric project. So we're hoping we can get more kids interested in the electric project. So as they age, they go from building a simple battery powered circuit to building a lamp by the time they're at their 10-year mark. So it's a really cool project. We're trying to get more kids interested in it. Then Wednesday, we have our mini day camp. That's something we do every year for the mini 4-Hers. Mini 4-Hers are kids that are kindergarten to 2nd grade. And we have 3 different day camps for them, a spring, a summer, and then a fall. And that's kind of their chance to take part in 4-H activities because they're not old enough for these spark clubs like the electric spark club. So this is our chance to kind of get them excited about all the things that 4-H has to offer. And the theme this year is nature. So as nature would have it, it's supposed to rain all day Wednesday. So they're going to really explore the nature of the water cycle on Wednesday. We've got lots of hands-on crafts planned for them, just talking about flowers and natural, DeWitt County specific flora and fauna, just trying to get them interested in the nature that we have here. Another project that Lauren has been working on is YQCA, which is the Youth for Quality Care of Animals. And that is a program that, again, is run every year. Anybody who brings livestock has to go through YQCA and get a certificate to show that they know how to respectfully and humanely care for animals. So that's a pretty big project that every single 4-Her who brings an animal has to go through. So that has taken a lot of her time.
This includes small animals, the pets and that
Yes.
sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah. Every animal. So it's a lot of kids. Simultaneously, Lauren and Lisa have been working on, they're calling it a think tank. But what it is a collaborative networking group that we're trying to start up with all these serving organizations in the county, just so we stop competing with each other accidentally and we start joint programming and planning together. Because twice now we've accidentally had a babysitting program at the same time as the Y. And so we don't want to do that anymore and they don't want to do that anymore. So we're trying to just be a little bit more assertive with our planning and plan together instead of parallel. So that's what's going on in 4-H. One thing I did want to highlight in your annual impact report is there's a page on Juntos. And I think you guys have heard me talk about Juntos before. We do have a Juntos program here in the county. It's at Southwest. It is going really well. They're on week 4 of 6 for the program, and then it rolls into a 4-H club where basically all the participants that were in the actual scripted Juntos program now become a club and they do 4-H activities together. So it brings the community into the club, basically. It's going really well. We have 19 families and they all signed up for the 4-H portion, so they all wanted to continue with the process. And we're really excited about it. The next steps are to try and take it to Jasper. So as soon
What
as
is the overall goal for that program?
to try and bring what we do into the Latino community and vice versa, bring some of their culture and awareness for us of what their needs are into our programming. So kind of the two-way street. Yeah. In health and human sciences world, I am just finishing up the school year with those Southridge Middle School impact classes. So every week I go in and I talk to a different group of kids in either the 6th or 7th grade about nutrition. I've been doing this the entire school year. The first semester was about just general food groups. What are food groups even? What goes into the different food groups? Why is it important to eat a well-rounded plate? This semester we're talking about the energy balance and skipping meals and what that does for your metabolism. So,
How receptive are children to those messages?
it's tough, especially that lesson right now in wrestling season. Trying to tell them, don't skip meals to cut weight. They don't like that so much. But I think we're getting there. I certainly, I have quizzed them on the food group things that I taught them, and they remember it. So whether or not they want to hear it, I think they'll remember it. And this is something that we hope to continue. So by the time the 6th grade gets to 7th grade, maybe they'll actually listen.
Weight-based sports are health challenge.
Yes,
I don't know the right nice way to say it. I participated in it, and there are unhealthy activities for,
Mhm.
in my experience, young boys, young men,
Yeah.
whatever. And I don't know if women have a comparable event that they have to do that, but I know for boys in wrestling that.
And
And the coaches don't say starve yourself. They don't say put on the suit and sweat 5 pounds out the next 40 minutes. They don't make you do that. Or in my experience, they never made us do that, but the kids kind of figured it out on their
it's
own.
a silent culture for sure.
Yeah, it's very silent. You just-
Yeah, dad tells some child that this worked for me, so the child takes it into the team.
I mean, there were X-Lax I remember people taking, not eating for days, the hot suits,
Yeah,
sauna
so I
suits.
did actually just look this boy in the face and said, this will stunt your growth. It will damage your organs. So whether he heard that or not, probably not, if he's got a real love for wrestling, that he is willing to do that to his body in 7th grade.
And sometimes that's desirable
He'll
to
hear
them
it
to stay in a
sometimes.
lower weight class then.
He'll hear it at some point in time in his life, and maybe he'll think back to 7th grade when he said, oh yeah, I should listen to Chelsea. Who knows?
When I think of these kind of programs, I think, how much
Excuse me.
value do we have telling kids don't do drugs? Don't eat poorly. And
Mhm.
and in the past, I thought there's so little that kids take in with that, but I think it's really the accumulation of hearing it over and over and over. And I think it does, maybe subconsciously, if nothing else, you learn something from it, even if maybe the one instance that you're teaching
Right.
doesn't necessarily change
We
your life that
agree.
day. But over the long run, I think it's very worthwhile.
We do agree with that, and explaining the why is a big part of my personal mission, and the mission of Purdue Extension is not only to tell you to eat fruits and vegetables, to tell you why. Why is that important, so that you can make an informed choice of, yeah, I kind of like being clear-headed and focused and not struggling at school, so I'm gonna go eat some more oranges.
Yeah, hearing it over and over again is a good point. I mean, while you were kind of going through that, I thought that sounds like health class. And it is, but hearing it from another source, another person presenting in a little different way, somebody might pick it up over here that they didn't pick up over here.
And unfortunately, in middle school, they don't have health class until 8th grade. So you'll notice that the impact was just for 6th and 7th grade, and I've got a different program for the 8th grade where we're actually going to go in, do an intensive series, a 4-week series where they see me every single week, and we're going to actually cook some things that are pretty simple and talk to them about if you're caring for other little ones at home and the responsibility relies upon you. Here are some tools that you can take into the kitchen so that you can help your younger siblings make good choices as well. Because we do know a lot of those 8th graders are the parents for a good chunk of the day.
So in the absence of health class, do they have home ec? Do they have anything that would teach any of that kind of stuff? Or are you the health class?
In high school they do, I don't know what they do in middle school.
That's what I meant, like you said 6th and 7th grade doesn't have
6th and 7th
health
grade
class,
does
so I
not
thought they
have
might have home ec.
They don't call it home ec anymore, they call it family and consumer sciences.
They do.
Facts.
Tax class, yeah. So that's why Southridge.
Facts right now in 7th grade.
It
When
does.
you said facts, I said, yeah, he has that.
Is he at Jasper or Southridge? Yeah. So the way Southridge is run, that's why they have this impact class. They've shortened each of their class periods so they can have this one class period that's dedicated to life skills. So
That's good.
yeah, it's kind of neat. Other than that, I have been recently trained in a new program called Parents Forever, which is going to replace our old co-parenting class called Co-Parenting for Successful Kids. It's something that we work with the judges on, that anybody who's going through a parenting transition has to have this class. So we can teach them positive communication skills as they go and co-parent kids, because that can be a little difficult when you don't want to see the other person for a while.
So at the discretion of the judges, people, currently, everyone goes through it that is asking for divorce?
Yes. Yep, so our contract with co-parenting for successful kids ended, and we've now adopted this Parents Forever curriculum. So that we'll start seeing classes in that here shortly. Yeah. Few office updates. Things are going really, really well with Elise, so thank you on your help with that. He's been very receptive. We just had to have an outlet replaced for our new printer, and there were no questions asked. He 100%. Yep, okay. I'll have an electrician out there, and within a week it was fixed. So things are going really well there.
That is much better than we were in the past. I'm happy we took those efforts.
Yeah. And then we have looked at the open positions job description, and we do feel it can remain as administrative assistant, but we are going to add on the duty or responsibility that they will be responsible for our social media and marketing. That was not previously there, but we are hoping to add that on. But we still feel like it falls within administrative assistant. So we'll have that to Marky hopefully tomorrow. Okay, any questions? Oh, what's been going on?
That was
I
good.
don't think so. I appreciate all the effort and work
Thank
and
you.
the time you put into it. And hopefully we can continue to support you in all that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're about to enter into our busy season, so if you see us running around CVS looking a little crazy, that's why it's just fair stuff.
Do you want to tell us, is there anything within these two that you do want to share while you still have a few minutes? Might as well give the extension a little more time.
Sure. So the Fast Start program is a program run through Purdue University where high school students can go and take a test to essentially test out of some of their first year classes. So, we used to have that in high school. Now it's an automated test on a computer, kind of like they do with the standardized tests. You have the ability to test out to a sophomore level. I think there are 10 tests, if I remember correctly. So you can actually enter into your first year at Purdue as a sophomore. So save yourself quite a bit of money through that Fast Start program. If you test out of so many, it's an automatic admittance to Purdue. So you won't be wasting your time. It's, I believe, 5.
So do these tests, I don't want to say that, do they follow, when I think back to high school, because you took a language class, you took Spanish or something like that, you could test out of it, and was it the skills or was it the class itself? And so in this case here, is it some of the 4-H programs that are preparing these kids for the testing programs? Is that a part of it, or is it just all accumulative?
It would be your high school classes. Yes. So when it used to be done where you would go to Purdue and you would have these testing days, but now they're letting you have access to the tests a little bit easier through an online portal, so that if I take Spanish junior year and I want to test out of freshman college Spanish because it's fresh in my mind, I can do that to kind of get that requirement off of my freshman college plate. So,
And it's great that it's free.
yeah, so it is a good avenue for those who are worried about money for paying for college, because it would cut off a year of college.
30 credit, if you did 10 courses, you get 30 credits, and basically had a freshman year for free.
Yes. So it's best kept secret, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
The bad thing for some people, they say they only go to Purdue.
too bad.
I guess what I'm saying is Purdue's a wonderful school, but
Yeah.
some people, if they want to go to another school, I don't know if other places offer it, I guess.
Right.
Sort of what I'm
Right,
saying.
this is a Purdue specific
Right.
program. So you have to
So
want
anybody that wants to go to Purdue?
Yes, you
that's
gotta
a good
boil her up.
opportunity.
That's the one
Boil her up,
thing.
there you go.
With the annual impact report, this kind of chooses the biggest and the best from the whole entire state. Like I said, there is the Juntos program in there. And then there's a nice article on 4-H for everybody and how 4-H is really becoming inclusive, which I think is an important mindset to adopt here recently. It's what we're trying to do with the Juntos program, is make it more inclusive. They actually had a person with Down syndrome that they highlighted in that story. So it's a nice story.
Yeah, I looked at it online, so it'd be nice to see it this way.
Yes, it's nice and shiny here now. And is there anybody else that you can think that I should share those reports with besides the county council?
Let's see.
We have lots of them in our office. So if you ever think of like, oh, you should take one to so-and-so, shoot me an email from them.
I think if you gave 7 of them to Mr. Kleesner, he'd probably hand them out for you. If you're not,
Or you could present to the council.
Yes. Yeah.
okay.
I plan on bringing them on Friday.
That'd be great, thanks.
Thank you.
You know, one of the interesting things about Purdue, the last time I was up there, were the robotic coolers that run around campus.
Aren't those cool?
They are,
Yeah.
they are.
What do you mean, what do they do?
They deliver, you order, whatever it is, you order, I don't know if it's pizza or maybe from the bookstore or wherever, they're delivery vehicles.
Yeah.
Robotic delivery vehicles, the GIS controlled, and they go.
Similar to the Amazon ones that I maybe I've seen,
Mhm.
just little wheels and they go down the side.
Yeah, and they look like a small cooler.
They look like Wally. They really
Yeah.
look like Wally. Yeah, and they know when to stop at the
And I suppose the receiver gets a text or something and says it's at your doorstep.
But yeah,
I don't
I'm
know
not
if
sure
it's-
how they work
I'm not
exactly,
sure
but I
either.
would guess so. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you for
time.
coming in.
I appreciate it.
Okay, it's 9:15. Alexander, that's you?
Yep, that's me.
With Norfolk Southern Railroad. I've read it all.
Which one of you is Steve? Right here. There you go. Nice to meet you in person. So I want to thank you for your time here and taking the time to speak with me about potential safety initiative we'd like to take with the county here. A little bit about myself. I'm an engineer by trade, and I've been working with the public safety group at Norfolk Southern for 6 years now, traveling their 22-state system with different safety projects. The safety project we wanted to talk to you about today is 2 potential road crossing consolidation efforts. So what that is closing down a public street that crosses our track. The reasoning for that is Indiana has had, out of our 22-state system, the second highest number of incidents at our public grade crossings the last couple years straight. So what that means is a lot of people are unfortunately getting hit, getting killed at our grade crossings, which is incredibly unfortunate. So we have a program with the state of Indiana to work with local towns and counties on reducing the number of our public grade crossings. So the 2 we wanted to talk to you about were out by Birdseye, Indiana, one of them being King Street, the side that's on the county side, and 1175 East. Both those crossings don't have any active warning devices, which are gates, bells, flashers, anything on them. It's just a crossbuck. Both, I would say, have low vehicle traffic, low traffic levels on them. And in particular, we had gone to the town of Birdseye to talk to them about the King Street crossing on their side of the limits. And they were not very receptive to working with us to try to reduce that crossing. They had some concerns because 90% of the people that live on King Street are using their side, their crossing, instead of the crossing on the county side. Only about 10% they said were using the county side's crossing. So it made more sense for them to keep their crossing. Another thing that I should mention is that they said that no emergency vehicles are able to access the county's crossing due to the profile of the road leading up to the crossing. It's like a real steep pitch on it. So
Again, you're talking about King Street
yes,
for that particular.
yes. So, and like I said, I've drove over the crossing, and coming down to the road there, it is quite a bit of a steep pitch. So for those reasons alone, I'm not quite sure it makes that much sense for that crossing to remain, given that emergency vehicle can't access it. 90% of residents aren't even using it. And there's another crossing not too far away that they could use. That's a much more profile, adequate crossing. So so we talked about a little bit about incentives here, what the railroad's willing to offer to work with you for either the King Street or the 1175, which is just east of Birdseye. We're offering $20,000 if we can work with you to close one crossing, or $50,000 cash if we can do both crossings. In addition to that, the state of Indiana has a grant specifically for closing grade crossings with us. That grant is $20,000 to $50,000 for the first crossing, and another $20,000 for any other crossing after that. So all in total, quite a decent amount of money available here.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You mentioned 20 for one and 50 for two.
20 to 50 for the first one. They have a range. I don't know how they determine where you fall in that range, but
And this is from the state.
from the state.
Okay.
And then a 20 for the second one. That's a flat number for any other crossing that you close.
Is this, but was there also an incentive from the railroad?
Yes.
That's what you mentioned first.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of 20s
Okay.
and 50s. Yeah.
All right.
20 for us for one crossing, 50 from us if we do both,
Okay.
and from the state, 20 to 50 for the first one and 20 for the second one.
Okay.
What's the process with working with the state? Is that something we do or you do?
So I sent over to Steve, it's like an informational packet that gives you the outline, but essentially what happens is you would sign a resolution with us to close the crossing, and obviously we would pay you our funds, and then there is a process through the state where you apply for those funds as well after the resolution is signed. I should mention we would do all the work. We would remove the crossing. We would barricade it with MUTCD compliant end-of-road devices on our property lines. There would be zero cost, zero things to do for the county, just a signature, and you would get your check. You can spend it on whatever you want from us. I mean, and at the end of the day, our goal here is reducing number of incidents in Indiana specifically. Did anyone have any specific questions or?
I know you're not the state, but
Yes.
the 20 to 50 plus 20, is that pretty automatic, or is that competitive? Is that a grant that's competitive in any way? Or
From what I understand, it's pretty.
Let's take the minimum at any rate, 20 for the first and 20 for the.
There is a person I could get you in contact with at the state that can maybe answer more specific questions, but as I understand it, it's pretty automatic.
Okay.
So they are really trying to help the situation, so that's why that money's available.
Okay.
And the benefit to Norfolk, why they want to do it is less instances, less.
Well, we're tasked by the federal government to reduce our number of incidents. So that's why we have this pot of money to pull from.
And they're doing these at crossings that are not, no gates and all that, or just?
Not necessarily. There are some that have gates that are also being looked at. But in these two particular cases, they were chosen because of, A, they had another road that was nearby, and B, they had certain things like, for example, 1175. I don't know if you guys have gotten across that one. It's a weird snake movement. I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know how large a vehicle would even get across that.
It's like a horseshoe.
Yeah, it's like a horseshoe, and I doubt many people are using that crossing, to be honest.
Are there, could there be additional crossings in Du Bois County that the railroad would consider in the future? Or is it, have you already looked at all of Du Bois County and this is?
I've looked through the county, and these are our two that we wanted to talk to you about. I can't speak for 5-10 years down the road, but at this point, this is what we're looking at.
this point?
Is there a rating system, maybe how valuable each crossing would be as far as that money, or you said it kind of varies?
From the state funds?
Or even for yourself, it's just the flat 20 and 50?
Yeah, so that's what I'm authorized to give. I don't have any access to know why they've offered the railroad 20 for 50. That comes above me. But for the state, I assume the way they're calculating that is based off of incident ratios and things like that. Obviously, a higher profile crossing is going to be.
You don't have numbers of people who cross that track at that point.
Like daily traffic numbers. There are numbers listed on the Federal Railroad inventory chart for each of those two crossings, but I believe they were from the 80s or 90s, so they were pretty old. Sometimes counties will do like new traffic counts before they decide to close a crossing with us. I've seen that done in the past, or maybe you guys have updated numbers that we don't.
We have some numbers on some roads, but probably not those.
Probably not those. Most of them that we normally get with traffic counts are where bridges are located.
Yeah.
Now, we have been working with Region 15, but I don't think that these two would have been selected for a count. However, we could probably come up with something.
So what are the next steps if we say, thanks for coming in, we want to leave our road open, you just go move on to the next area and
Yep.
we say.
You get out right down, right? So I believe there is another process where the railroad can petition the state to forcefully close a crossing through Indiana. I would have to check into that, but at this time, we're looking at just working with the county and going from there. We really like this to be a cooperation effort between you guys and us. Whether we choose one or two, there's definitely two crossings there that really need to be looked at and think, long term, does that crossing really need to be there? Because the way automatic warning signals, gates, bells, flashers work is that your crossing is on a list within the state, and they choose to do so many crossings a year, whether it be 5 or 7 crossings a year, and each of those crossings are about $500,000 to upgrade with those equipment. You don't know if your crossing's at the top of the list or at the bottom of the list, as far as when it's time to be upgraded. So potentially you could have a crossing sitting there with no automatic warning devices for the next 20 years. So before it hits that point, really think about yourself. Like, does this crossing really make sense to sit there when there's another crossing a couple hundred feet down the track that 90% of residents are using?
Got it. Steve, is Norfolk Southern in charge of the Duff crossing?
At Duff, from what I understand, they are now. The ball is in Norfolk's hands, and I think they were planning on construction, I believe, in 2023. That's what I had heard from Jason Holder, and I laid that out. So,
What's the Duff crossing?
Was it 2019?
Yeah.
Where
It's been a while.
I don't remember all the details. The short version was if the county put it into investment to help get this thing started, then we would be accelerated on this because there was a local resident whose wife had been in an accident, and luckily she didn't die there. And then there was another person on the same crossing that had died years ago, and it had no cross arms. I think did it have flashing lights maybe?
that's all it had was flashing lights.
It had flashing lights. Didn't have cross.
It's an older system.
Get an older system, and there's trees, and it's over a little hill, and it just wasn't ideal. So the county thought we would invest in, if there's something we could do to invest to help speed this process up. So that we were told that if we put our $30,000 in to help study or something, that it would be accelerated, we'd be up that
Off the list.
And, so now it's 20, 21, 22, 3 years later, and that's the accelerated list.
Is that the one you had me check on? I think that was that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought that was in the process, right?
It's in the process.
Or I
and
think
we
it was
just-
on NDOT side. I don't think it was with
And then they say it was,
okay.
It's your fault, it's their fault.
Okay.
We don't want to know. They probably pass it back and forth.
But yeah, if you're keep getting the runaround, let me know, and I'll regardless look into it for you guys again. But
Because I always give Steve the runaround, and he's got to go bother somebody.
well, now you got someone to bother.
Yeah.
But
No, that's just something that every time I think of railroads, I think of that.
oh god,
Would love to have that project wrapped up.
Yeah.
But you said you think that maybe it's next year.
hopefully by 23. The odd thing about it was there was a crossing just maybe a half mile west of there in the little town of Duff
okay,
that had probably a third less, well, 2/3 less traffic
Okay.
as the one that we're talking about, and it was signal. It had gates and the whole ball of wax. And then the other one, that's the busy road, just the lights.
I think that's being generous. It's probably 90% less traffic, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, probably
They
so.
were talking about Main Street versus the bypass.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, they have their own reasoning for putting things where they put them. But
But the one in Duff's been there for a while.
Yeah, well, about 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
5 or 6. If memory serves.
Yeah, so no, I appreciate you coming in and going over this with us. What's our next step? We have to make a determination if we want to move forward, or do you have a contract that we would look at?
I could send it to you if you wanted to look at it. Normally what happens is it's very plain language. It's only half a page long. It just says, we'll give you the money, you're fine with closing this crossing, and we're gonna do all the work.
If you have that, let our attorney look at it and say that looks sufficient.
Yeah,
In case this board decides to move forward with it, we have one member that is missing, and
I think we're required to have a public hearing, or at least we would want to have.
Yeah, that's,
On that.
okay.
If we decide we want to go that far, I mean, we can decide now, not even to do it, but if we decide to go forward, we want to start with a public hearing.
Yep. That sounds fine.
What I'd like to do, I've got a copy of what you sent me. I'll make copies and get it to the commissioners. And if you'd like, if you want to get together, we can go take a look at both of those crossings and so you can see for yourself what they look like and all that. And we can attempt to get some traffic counts out there as well, and kind of have some numbers to back up a decision. So
If we have a public hearing, would you be
Come back.
available to speak on behalf of the railroad?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you guys need me to do. And I will send Steve just a generic form, since we obviously haven't decided on crossings or numbers, with city attorney to look at that.
I guess just if you wanted feedback from at least one of the commissioners, I would say on paper, I'm in favor of it. If we have a public hearing and 30 people from the neighborhood show up and say they weren't interested in it for some reason, I might change my mind, or after we review it, but it seems reasonable to me to have fewer dangerous crossings. I don't want to lose another citizen to a not well planned out road that's been there for a long time.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of moving forward with a public hearing. I'll go back forward at this point.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Great.
And if you guys think of anything else in the meantime, feel free to send through Steve, and you can always ask me.
Hey Steve, if you could just email him weekly until that cross arm drive. If that doesn't work, then call.
You're not the only one.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys again.
he's almost speed dial.
Let's go.
So Commissioner Brown, would you be interested in putting this on a future agenda to discuss again, or should we go, do you think we're in a position where we should just schedule a public hearing to gather information, or should we, what steps do you feel would be necessary to move this forward?
I think maybe it'd be wise to wait another meeting for Nick to weigh in. But if we were to decide as a group as a board, to move forward with the public hearing, I guess my question is, would the public hearing be at a meeting, or would we hold a separate special meeting for that?
I would probably suggest doing a special meeting in an
I
evening
think
where
I
more
would.
people would be
I think I
involved
would as well, yeah.
at 6 o'clock.
Is there a way to do one near that area? so
Yeah, we
more
could
people
do it
might
at the
look?
Bird Fire Station or something like that if we wanted to.
So how about we put it on the next agenda for 10 minutes for a discussion between now and 2 weeks from now? We can get with Steve and do a site visit if we want. If Steve wants to do any traffic counts for either or both locations for a couple days, we can do that.
Don't tell anybody you're doing the countdown.
Where?
Just something we can, then in 2 weeks, we'll be a little more well informed. Alexander can send us the half page and yeah, we'll move forward from there. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Gallagher Health Insurance.
Mark and Tracy are on their way. They've had a little delay with traffic. They're maybe 5 minutes behind.
Okay. Marky, how about, do you have something for risk management training?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can go ahead and discuss that if you want.
I think so, if you're okay to do it now, that puts us a little out of whack on this, but that's fine.
So, twice a year, we usually conduct risk management safety trainings, and the committee joined us a couple weeks ago there for our first group session for 2022. And we would like to do our first half 2022 safety training on Wednesday, May 25th. And like the one before that, location will be at the Parklands. First session will be 6:45 to 7:45. The second session, 8:30 to 9:30. The third session, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And just like always, we'll have a trainer, Mark Ennis from Bliss McKnight. He's going to do the training this session. The topic's going to be running around driving. So we're talking driving safety, defensive driving, driving tips. We'll have a little construction site focus in there. We reviewed a lot of our back claims, and a lot of it's auto-related items. So we felt that would be a good section to hit on for the first half of training.
Is there anything you feel that the county can do or you can do as an HR person for, we've had a number of worksite instances where people are, I guess, hurt themselves in some way or another, or they become injured on the job. Is there something that would be of value to do in a day like this that can help that, or is that?
Yeah, I think we could maybe kick off the meetings or end the meetings with like a snapshot of what 2021's history looks like and what we've got into 2022, what the accidents look like, and how many we've got in the areas. We can definitely do that.
And if, I don't know if there's a way to quantify it, but if we had 10 incidences and each incident costs $10,000 on average, that's $100,000 there, then that's $100,000 that doesn't go somewhere else.
Yep.
As an employee, sometimes I think it might be so what? 10,000, $100,000.
Well, and I think we got so many different remote locations. It's not like everybody's in one location to say, oh, we had an accident on this site today. It's just because they're on the highway, they might have no idea what's going on up here for the most part. And the normal employee ain't gonna know what's going on at, say, the parks or solid waste area. So yeah, that'd be a good time probably.
It'd probably be nice if we could say, here are 3 things that have happened over the last year that have been expensive for one, and not in the best interest of our employee. Nobody wants to get hurt at work. If you think that would be helpful to people, if it's not, we won't do it.
Yeah.
You feel like you don't want to just not say anything or not do anything about those incidents.
Especially if any of those incidents are repetitive. We have, whatever they are, if we've had 3 incidences, similar incidences.
Correct.
To where we need to put some emphasis on that. If they're just kind of random out there, you still talk about general safety and stuff, but it would be hard to zero in. But if we had 3 people that were injured with electric shock, for example.
Yeah.
And are dropping something on their toes or something, whatever it is.
Yeah,
So it hurts their back because people are lifting properly. There are things that we can.
Correct. Yeah, and we actually identified two things, and actually the second half, we're going to probably, unless something trends differently, we're probably looking at some fall safety for the second half of 2022. That's the driving accidents and cost with road accidents. That's kind of leading number 1, and right behind that with falls. So that's our 2 main items right now. But yeah, I'll definitely throw something together for the end of the meetings or the front side of the meetings, just to, like I said, education.
I think there were some instances that was, a lot of it was like vehicle deer or something.
Yeah, rocks and, some comprehensive items, but still adds up.
I don't have anything.
Wednesday the 25th.
That sounds fine to me.
Yeah, and Tim, I talked to him, and he's gonna get the Parklands for us again this year, or for the first half. So the times there, first, second, third session, those are the traditional times we've always used. So Then the only other thing I've got on here is, I just want to bring it up just for communication purposes right now. Our HR attorney we've been using, Mr. Freiberger, he has switched law firms. He's now with Barber and Bauer, and he is requesting us to get a new retainer agreement. Nuts and bolts of this thing is the proposal would be a $300 per month retainer fee. For comparison purposes, I've also reached out to Old Tree and Deckens out of Indianapolis. They do not have a retainer fee at all. We only pay as we need it. But of course, the rates for those attorneys are around $300, $450 per hour. So that can add up relatively quickly if you're into something major. So I've also got a phone call this morning with Ice Miller out of Indianapolis. So maybe in a couple of weeks, we can throw that census together for comparison, and then we can make a determination on which way we want to go on that. So.
I would ask if you would call Bingham down here too, just to see if they have
Okay.
a local attorney that
Okay.
does that. That might be at least worth looking at.
Would,
Or, yeah, it used to be Bingham.
What is it?
Greenbaum and
Denton.
all, but that's Denton. Yeah, you're right.
would,
Great.
Greg, would he, no, not, the one we're using, Freiberger, there you go, thank you. Would he offer or would his firm offer a case-by-case, in other words, an hourly rate rather than a retainer?
I can ask him about that while in between.
Now, I don't know if that's something we'd be interested in, but it would be a different way of looking at it.
They probably prefer just to have a set fee, and then they don't have to worry about billing every month and those kind of, that's what I assume. So this year, I did look at the budget, I believe we had $3,000 budgeted for HR attorney fees. This would be $3,600.
It was previously billed each month, but last year he only charged us for 2 different months, and this year we haven't been billed at all yet, so.
Yeah, I think
I think when he switched,
I don't know if we just forgot or what happened there, but his last attorney firm, we never even got a bill from them at all that he was working out of. Now he switched firms again, so.
Again, that's a great price for us. Not
Yeah,
likely to
Correct,
continue.
got low zero, so.
But we use
Yeah.
him, so, I mean.
I was
so-
gonna say, yeah, I think we've used him, I think twice, one year and once the other year. It's, mainly just bouncing off questions. They
We'd
would
be better off paying him $400 3 times a year. Or
correct.
$600 4 times a year, even would be cheap enough.
his knowledge is just invaluable to us.
I was gonna say, he's been a good
Contacted him.
service for
When
us.
we needed him, he was always there for us, so.
So that, like, the other thing was, that's how many times you've used them. I didn't know how many times Schneider's used them or the auditor's office has used them as well.
I don't use him as much anymore because I defer to Marky, but I know Greg has contacted him in the past, so.
So between the three of them, maybe it makes sense to do the retainer, or maybe, I don't know, we'll have to look into it.
I would say I'll reach out and this other group you're talking about, and I'll ask him about the hourly fee, and then when Greg gets back, I'll ask him his thoughts too. That way, ahead of the 2-week next meeting, we'll be a little more prepared.
Yeah, we got sent you an email too on an online source that I found.
Yes, I see that.
MyHRCouncil.com, so just somebody that I reviewed. But yeah, I think either way, if we keep with Mr. Freiberger, who's, the nice thing about him is we have a relationship with him. He's from the area originally, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's nice to have a comfort level and a trust level.
He understands.
He understands what it's
who
like
we
here.
are.
Yep.
So if Bingham or Denton doesn't have somebody, I would like to find a way to work with Mr. Freiberger if we could.
All right, good enough.
Anything else in this room?
That's all I have.
Anything else for?
Nope.
Okay. All right, Gallagher Health Insurance.
Good morning.
That rush hour traffic in
I
DuBois
am telling
County.
you, I've never seen so many people not in a hurry in my life.
Spring
It's
break.
spring break, Mark.
Oh, my.
They're all going to Panama City.
Oh, they're good.
I should have.
At
left
this
the
rate, they're
school
gonna get
buses.
there about Thursday.
Age 30.
Next Thursday.
Poor Tracy had to listen to they claim the entire way out.
That's
We need,
okay.
we need to come to the driver's safety.
Do you have one for me to give to Nick?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is this similar to what was emailed to us?
This is exactly what was emailed to you, just wanted to walk through it with you. And maybe, before I get started, I will, let you know that as of April 30th of this year, another few days, Angie is going to be retiring. So I brought Tracy Klein with me this morning. Tracy has worked on your accounts behind the scene. Tracy will be stepping into that role for Angie and working with Marky. Her and Angie were down last week before, and met with Marky. So that'll be a fairly seamless transition, but I did want to let you know that Angie has chosen to retire after how many years? A lot of years.
Let's just keep it at that.
So, wish her well, and she's gonna spend some time with grandchildren, I think, going forward, so.
I didn't catch Tracy's last name.
Tracy Klein.
E-I-N or I-N-E?
CLIE.
That's the third choice.
No, didn't even try that one.
So Tracy's been with us prior to me selling to Gallagher, Tracy was on our team, so worked really behind the scenes, but is lead account manager for several of our accounts, and will be stepping into this one as well. So just wanted to let you know that. Tracy has many years of insurance experience, grew up in this, used to pay claims, started as a claims payer for Aetna, and worked her way up to a manager at Aetna, and has been on this side of the fence for 15 years plus. So you'll be in good hands as well with Tracy. So
Works out of Indianapolis.
yep, she's at our Indianapolis office. The other thing, just to let you know, that you'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks is as we transition more to Gallagher's processes and reporting packages, you will now start to receive what we call a financial monthly report. So we have our own team of actuaries that look at your monthly reporting data and analyze that. They put it together a monthly package that also will provide you with a projection going forward. So a lot of our accounts use those for budgeting purposes. A lot of our accounts use those for renewal purposes to set premiums. It'll tell you whether you're overfunded, underfunded. You're probably about a month away from receiving your first one of those, and when you do get it, then we will bring it down and go through it with you, so you'll be able to see exactly what it looks like. But it's a very nice reporting package that does have some futuristic pricing modules built into it. So, and then before we get into last year's, just a little bit, first 4 months of this year, we're having knock on wood, a fairly good year for health insurance claims. We're down about $250,000 year over year. So this year's claims are about $250,000 below the first 4 months of the last plan year. So just a little bit of insight as to where we stand. This is ended 10/31, so I decided I would give you a little bit of insight into 11/1 through February 28th of this year as compared to where it was in 21. So any questions on anything so far?
On the second quarter report that you maybe gave us during the third quarter of last year, we talked about employee contributions, how we measure up against your book of business. And ours was 12 or 13% lower than your book of business. And I didn't know is that something we should look at? Should we leave it where it is? It's just something I wanted to bring up for discussion. If the employee contribution is too low, or if it's where we think it needs to be for our sector.
So we just finished, not to kick that can down the road, but we just closed our annual survey. I know you participated in that. So Chad, what that means is all of Gallagher's accounts nationally, there's about 40,000 different accounts that participate in our annual survey. Marky completed it for Du Bois County. That means that you will get a report that shows you every aspect of your plan and how it compares. So that closed in the last week, I believe. It'll take them probably another 60 days to publish the data in a format that's usable for the end user. But at that point, if you wanted us to rerun that report to show you how you stack up with not just your employee contributions, but what your deductibles, how they stack up, we can sort that, slice and dice it by public entity. I can sort it any number of different ways to give you an idea of how you guys look in comparison to, that would be the most recent survey, give you an idea of how you compare to other public sector employers.
I think it's important to look at that on a rolling basis, just to make sure that we're not.
Yeah.
Because our expenses go up every year, but if our contributions never go up, then the county's going backwards.
Right, and you're gonna see again that your contributions are much lower again this year than our norms, so.
But I'm satisfied with them being somewhat below what other places do, so we want that to be a competitive edge that we have when somebody's
It is.
seeking employment.
Yeah, and it's typical for public sector employers to have lower employee
I was
contributions.
gonna say, being lower than your book of business as you refer to, but I would like to see it in the sector.
Yep.
The public employee sector.
Yeah, we can run a public sector report. Again, we're probably about 60 days out because that survey period just closed about a week ago, so. But I do know that I saw Marky had completed his, for you guys, so you'll be able to pull off any of those reports that you want. So I know this has been emailed to you a couple of weeks ago. I think Angie emailed it to you, so I just kind of wanted to highlight through the plan, give you a little bit of an idea of how you looked year over year. So this is your year-end review. As you know, your plan year ends October 31st. So the first thing we'll do is just skip over to page 26 and 27.
That's actually just a general health question about the ACA.
Yeah.
I think that's what's called. So it says that for new policies, there's a maximum out of pocket of just under $9,000. So if you had an existing plan, does that not fall into it, or are they making all plans have a max out of pocket for participants?
So under ACA, every single plan has a max out of pocket, yes. And that has been the case for a while. It's ratcheted up, was $6,600 when they first passed ACA, and it's ratcheted up a little bit. But every plan does have an out-of-pocket maximum that has to meet ACA guidelines. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah.
Mhm. I didn't know if there were grandfathered old plans that didn't have to comply, if it was only when you did a new plan, but you're
Yes.
saying it's all plans would have a minimum.
There are some grandfathered plans, but even the grandfathered plans, I believe, had to comply with that segment of ACA.
Thank you.
And there aren't very many grandfathered plans anymore out there.
You said page 20?
26 and 27 will be your first, really, everything prior to 26 is propaganda if you are bored and so inclined. But 26, 27 really starts to get into the financials. So you'll see that your plan average monthly enrollment for the period 11/1 of 20 through 10/31/21, you had a 209 average monthly enrollment, which was pretty close to the same as you had, well, not pretty close, it was exactly the same average monthly enrollment as you had in the year ended 10/31/20. I think the big difference here for me is that your family, during the period 11/19 through 10/31/20, you had 105 family coverages. For this last period, you had 93. So we saw a decrease in family enrollment. We saw a roughly the same in the single enrollment, but our employee children and our employee spouse went up. So probably what that means is that people that used to carry family coverage are now looking at husband and wife employers and separating out coverages accordingly for lower costs. So I think that was a relatively significant change. Average age of your employees went down a little bit from 47.12 to 46.41. You had 606 total covered lives average for the period ending 10/20 versus 598, so a little bit of a drop in enrollment. And then your ratio of covered lives also went down a little bit due to that probably that same drop in enrollment. Contract, your stop loss contract, as you know, you have an $80,000 spec with a $30,000 aggregating spec. Your specific stop loss contract is a 2412, which is what we call a paid contract. And your aggregate stop loss is a 1512. Any questions on those?
Nope.
Seen those before, but sometimes if you don't deal with it every day, you don't remember. And then just a breakout of your costs down there. So I think probably the significant thing here is our specific stop loss premiums did go up in 2021, obviously. However, if you look at your aggregate attachment factors actually came down year over year. You'll remember for that period that we went into 11/1 of 20, we actually were renewing at a cost neutral basis. So our fixed cost did go up, but our claims liability came down to offset the increased fixed cost. That's how you renewed. So that's why those numbers, the specific premiums are going up, but your aggregate exposure numbers are coming down. If you go over to pages 28, 29.
Can you talk to me about organ transplant again?
Yep.
I believe last time we talked about it, but 2 years ago the answer was, you gotta have it. If you don't have it, it's a terrible idea, and then you just pay whatever it is, and it's because, I assume that is because it's such an expensive process that if you never use it, yeah, you're paying insurance for something you don't need, but if you use it once ever,
You got it.
covers it. That's still the same answer?
You got it. You really, I mean, on a group this size to go without a transplant policy is very risky in my opinion. The reason being is you could, for the premiums that you pay, and if you annualize those organ transplant premiums, you're paying about $23,000 a year. If you look at 28, 29, you'll see those costs annualized. So for less than $30,000 a year, in all honesty, you could go 10 years without a transplant, have a transplant, and be money ahead at the cost of transplants. So depending on what kind of transplants, I mean, a kidney transplant's $150 all day long after discounts, all the way up to multi-viscerals, which are $1.8 million, $1.9 million all day long. So it just depends on the type of transplant. With your transplant policy, you do get a premium credit for that on your stop loss. So if we did away with that, our costs for specific coverage would go up a little bit, not to the tune of $30,000, but you do get about a 4 to 5% discount on your spec premiums by having a transplant policy in place.
And what does a transplant policy pay that the normal insurance would not pay? For example, hospital stay and those types of things.
It's not that it pays differently. What it does is it takes, so you guys are self-funded, meaning that if
We pay it.
you pay it. What a transplant policy does is it takes 100% of the cost of the transplant and the insurance company pays it so that it's not paid, it's a fully insured contract. So it sets on top of your self-funded contract, and anything transplant related is paid by that fully insured contract, sets outside of your experience. So if you had
But if we didn't have it, we would be liable for the 80,000.
you would be liable for the 80,000, and then anything that the reinsurance paid above that would count against your experience in your next renewal.
That's a good point, though. Because it's not like we're gonna be out of $1 million. Well, I guess we would be out of $1.5 million for ourselves.
No, we'd be out of 80.
You'd be on
We'd be out of 80, but then we pay through the nose for our next renewal.
Yeah, you pay out the nose for the next renewal. Plus another thing is you gotta remember, transplants usually don't happen to an employee overnight. Like, you don't wake up on Tuesday and get a transplant Wednesday. These are things that come. So what happens is at a renewal, if you had let's say a stage 3 dialysis patient, you would start to see that person lasered at a higher spec deductible. So that's where it gets you is, I mean, we have one right now in this area that's $1.3 million laser for transplant. So, that's $1.3 million laser on something else. But if that were to occur, that person would be lasered at $1.3 million instead of this typical spec deductible. That's where it eats you alive.
So if it falls within your current
Falls within your current year,
Okay.
you win, yes,
renew, now you're gonna be
correct.
getting up, right?
And remember, at renewal, we have to show your reinsurers, not just your historical claims, but what we call a trigger diagnosis report, which anybody that has a diagnosis that triggers a stop loss event, it's called a trigger diagnosis report. We print that off and we have to disclose that every single year at renewal as part of our renewal package for you. So they comb through them.
So they have an honest look at what they're getting themselves into.
They have an honest look at what they're getting, yeah.
Yeah, I think we actually had that this last week.
You did.
We had one on there that no longer relevant, but it's still on there.
So
Okay.
2829 just annualizes those plan costs that we looked at a minute ago. Really not much to report here other than your specific, as I said, your specific stop loss premium went from $526,000 in the plan year ended 2020 to $605,000 in the last plan year that ended 2021. So a little bit of a tick up there. Your fixed cost went up pretty much just as your spec premium went up. Everything else was pretty standard. And then your medical claims increased last year fairly substantially. You went from about $2.5 million of claims, net claims in the plan year ended 2020 to about $2.8 million last year. And as I said, the good news is, knock on wood, this year is you're about $250,000 down for the first quarter of 2022. So, questions there? Page 30 and 31 does break out your cost per employee. So you take your fixed costs, your medical claims, your average monthly enrollment. That gives you an average monthly cost and then an average annual cost. Then we look at employee contributions. We did see a decrease in employee contributions from 2020 into 2021. We had about $164,000 of employee contributions in the plan year ended October of 20. Last year, we had about $144,000 of employee contributions for the plan year that ended 10/21. I think that is probably due to increased emphasis on wellness.
Well, I think that would be due to less family,
True,
because family costs are higher.
true.
And I think we'll actually see that bounce now. So since we split out the wellness and non-wellness for next year's reporting, because now everybody hired after April seems to be non-wellness for the rest of the year. So
Then at the bottom of those pages, if you look at where you stack up with other employers in the Midwest, so your plan costs for the plan year ending 10/21, you were at $17,168 per employee. Your plan is a PPO plan. So if you look at the average, according to Kaiser, the average for Midwest, which includes Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, and Ohio, average PPO cost comparatively was $20,134. So you're still below the average PPO plan cost for the Midwest region. Questions? Page 30, 32, 33 just looks at your cost breakout on how much the employer's paying all in versus how much the employee's paying. This page does take into account employee contributions, deductibles, co-insurance, and out-of-pocket and co-pays. So for the plan year ending 10/31 of 21, your employees paid on average about 13% of the total cost of care. You guys paid about 87% of the total cost, compared to Unified's normative group percentage of about 72%. So yes, this is a richer plan, Chad. That goes back to what you asked earlier on how your employee contributions stack up. This is typical of public sector, so I don't want you to be like, oh gosh, we're way out of line. When we look at this, we're looking at Unified's entire book of business versus public sector book of business. So the Gallagher reports that you'll see in about 60 days will show you how you compare based on public sector employees. Any questions on that? All right, if we skip to the next section, the reinsurance analysis, kind of just gives you an idea of how your plan performed year over year in comparison to stop loss. The first thing we're going to see is your specific. In the plan year ended 10/20, we had about $983,000 paid on large claimants. We had 11 employees that accounted for almost $1 million worth of claims. We had $324,000 that were over spec. 3839, sorry. I tend to run quickly, so if I'm going too fast on this, let me know.
Yeah, you've been doing fine.
And I know you wanted some time, but you got that in the front end, so I'm good until 10:15.
You're good till 10:30.
Okay, all right. So you'll look at if you look at page 38, you'll see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns over. There's a number 2 in red, it says group individual specific deductible. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see at the top of the page that you've got everybody listed at $80,000. So those are your $80,000 spec deductibles. However, at the bottom of the page, you've got 4 members listed at amounts higher than $80,000. So that, Elmer, is that lasered out population. So if we look at our claims, we had $324,000 of claims over spec. However, some of those claims were lasered. So when we get to the net amount over spec, we had $206,000 of claims that were reimbursable, less our $30,000 aggregating specific. So you guys got returned $176,000 for that plan year ending 10/20. Is everybody with me on that one? If I look at the last year's plan report on page 39, this is the one that ended this 10/31/21. In that same period, we had 13 large claimants. We had about $1.4 million over, or $1.4 million on those claims paid on those 13 folks. The net amount over spec was $521,000, less your aggregating specifics. So the county actually got a refund last year back from reinsurance on spec claims of $491,000.
That all sound to make sense to what you're saying?
That makes sense.
Now, what's significant about that is this will have an impact on this coming year's renewal. So if you remember, looking at what we paid in spec premiums for last year, we had $605,000. This is going back to page 29. So you paid $605,000 in specific premiums. You received back from the carrier $491,000. So while that's not a loss for the carrier, that would make a carrier a little nervous that those numbers are as close as they are. So that will have a slight impact in this year's renewal because we do look back 3 years on every renewal. So they'll give a certain amount of weighting to that period that ended 10/21, and then they'll look at this year's claims as a result as well. But just to let you know, that is something that will impact this coming year's renewal. So I wanted to just point that out. Questions? Okay. Page 40 and 41 shows your aggregate claims. So you'll see that we remove the claims that are over specific. In the plan year ended 10/21, we had $2,636,000 of claims that were applicable to aggregate. That was an 89% loss ratio. That's actually not a terrible loss ratio, so that will not hurt you in the plan year or in the next renewal. We'd like to see that mid-80s, but based on where we're running year to date, along with the last plan year at 89% loss ratio, I don't expect our aggregate attachment points, setting where we are today, of course, can't see what's gonna happen in the next 4 or 5 months, but setting where we are today, our aggregate attachment point could possibly come down in the next renewal. Questions on this page? Okay. The next several pages are just your SBCs, your summary of benefits, showing your different plan design options. We go back to the next section, which I think is called your benefit utilization review. This pages 56 and 57 will kind of show you where your dollars were spent. So you had about 18% of your dollars spent for inpatient hospitalization. That equated to about $600,000 of actual claims. You were below our normal percentage amount, 19.9%. We were below our emergency room. You had 3.46% of your claims were emergency room related. Your outpatient surgeries were 19.5% of your total spend versus our normative of about 20.82. So probably the big thing down here, and you know that this is a big dollar amount to show, is your chemo radiation therapy was about almost 12% of your cost last year compared to our normative of 7.97. And you know that you have a person that's receiving significant treatment for cancer at the moment. So that's what drove those numbers up. That's questions on this? Page 59 is your claim stratification. So you had 17.5% of your population account for about 86.3% of your claims.
Can you repeat that, please?
You had 17.5% of your population. This is at the bottom of page 59. 17.5% of your population accounted for about 86% of your claims, and 82.5% of your population accounted for 13.7% of your claims. That's just the rule of insurance. Your large claimants account for your, you had 21 claims last year in the last plan year that were over $25,000 for about 3.47% of your total claims compared to our normative book of business of 4.29%. So all in all, last year we were up on our claims. We had a large claimant that hit us pretty good. That's the person that's still receiving radiation and chemo. It drove a lot of your increased costs last year. Again, your costs are down first 4 months of this year. Your large claimant population today on our spec report, I think there's 4 people that are out there right now. I don't believe we've had anyone exceed spec deductible. So I'm going to skip through some of this other. If you just look at 61, shows you how your claims were broken out. 48% of your claims were attributed to employees. 30% of your claims, 30.5% of your claims were spouses, and then dependents accounted for about 21.3% of your claim. Your dependent population here has always been a little bit higher than the norm. Again, that's public sector, so not unusual, but when you look at your dependent spend, that's the reason why. Page 63 is your prescription utilization. So we have about 90% generic dispensing and about 98% generic substitution. Can't get much better than that. At the bottom of the page shows you your top 10 prescriptions by cost and how many. So you'll notice that we still have 5 anti-diabetic medicines in there. That's not unusual for Indiana. We like our diabetic meds here, so that's not unusual for this part of the country. The middle of the page shows your top 10 spend by employee. So your largest prescription spend was $47,000 on one employee. These do not necessarily, can't really take the bottom of the page and equate it to the middle of the page. So this just kind of shows you how your prescription drug costs broke out. If you go back to page on your, let's go back to your reinsurance analysis on pages 40 and 41. Our RX claims last year were about the same as they were the year before. We had $519,000 of prescription claims in 2020. And then for the plan year ended 2021, we had 522,000. So our drug claims have kind of leveled off again. A large part of 2021's claims are going to be radiation chemotherapy treatment drugs. So expect to see that come down a little bit this year. And I think if I look at this, at the report for the first 4 months, it is down a little bit. So just
Remember, these prescriptions, these don't look like anything that are temporary usually. The
No,
high
no.
cost prescriptions are ongoing. It's not, we're gonna give you one expensive dose of something and then you're done. It's,
no, your top 10s are all what I would call maintenance condition medications. Those conditions are probably not going to go away. 60, 65 just kind of breaks out.
on the true script part though, is there something that you as our broker or us as a county, you know, you're a third party looking at it, is there something we can do or should be doing? But if you're not willing to say it publicly, I understand. We can move on and talk about it some other time.
It's tough in public sector to do much about this. I mean, it is, we have clients that do take some fairly drastic measures when it comes to prescription drugs and limits drugs that are available. We limit the formularies, but in public sector, it's difficult because people expect certain things. We have a limited formulary now, but we could narrow that even further. And really restrict on the drugs that we make available through there. We can look at that if you want. Certainly, we have our own Gallagher Pharmacy Alliance. I think we did look at that, Angie, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we did look at, Gallagher has a pharmacy alliance with 3 of the national pharmacy PBMs. And because we put most of our small groups into those pharmacy alliances, we actually looked to say, could we better your pricing through putting you in a bigger pool? And it really wasn't, there were some cost savings, but it wasn't significant for the disruption that we were going to see. So we can look at that again, but I really think TrueScripts is doing a pretty phenomenal job of managing your prescription drug spend. And we don't have a lot of we don't get a lot of chatter on it. So, I mean, I think it's working.
Yeah, I think they did increase rebates to
We did, so part of the outcome of that whole Gallagher process was that we went back to TrueScripts and said, where you're falling short is in your rebates, and they actually went out and renegotiated their contracts to give you guys better rebates, which is helpful, yeah. And that is a result of what we did a couple of years ago. So not to toot our horns, but that was a direct result of that.
And I think their customer service is great too. I mean, you reach out to them, they literally say one call, somebody you get a live person, and that is how it works. You call your bigger PBMs up in big cities, so.
Yep. Page 71 just kind of talks about your PCP care versus specialist care. It looks like we had 25 emergency room visits for accident. We had another 68 emergency room visits for illness. never hurts to continue to push emergency room is for that, it's emergent, and try to encourage people not to use that. So we had 111 surgical facility visits in 2021.
So what's a facility illness under emergency room?
So a facility illness would be whether or not where the treatment came. So that person would be probably an admission. So we had 65 that were actually admitted of the 68 that went for emergency rooms visits. Whereas we only had 15 admitted out of the 25 for accidents. And then the last one I'll talk about is page 73, and that is your PPO savings analysis. So because you're utilizing Patoka Valley, we had about a 54.05% discount through the Patoka Valley Healthcare Cooperative. So off of bill charges, Patoka Valley was able to provide you with about 54% savings. On top of that, you know that we wrapped the Patoka Valley with Cigna and with Encore, and now also with St. Vincent. So if you look at those, our shared savings discounts for Cigna was about 81% off of bill charges. Encore got you 38%, so those are mostly claims that are going to IU. And then St. Vincent Evansville, we got about a 60% discount off of St. Vincent Evansville. So St. Vincent continues to push hard for this market and are providing pretty significant discounts. So you'll notice if you go back to the volume of claims that we had under Encore, our Encore claims seem to be leveling out and actually going down, and there's more direct Cigna referrals and direct St. Vincent referrals coming out of Patoka Valley, which is a good thing for you guys because it's actually bringing your discounts down, or moving your discounts up, bringing your costs down as a result of that. You all know that Memorial has announced they're looking for a partner, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I know that both healthcare systems in the state are buying heavily for that, so that's something to watch over the next 12 months. Questions?
Yep.
77 shows your top providers. You had almost $950,000 going to Memorial. So again, that Patoka Valley Healthcare Cooperative is a big deal on $1 million worth of claims at 54%. TrueScripts was your biggest, second biggest provider last year for $522,000. You already saw that. And then your University of Louisville Hospital, that was, I believe, our cancer patient. Is it not, Angie?
I'm sorry,
Louisville.
yes.
So that's where that would go. So that's the reason that one's in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't expect to see them in your top 5 at least. Couple things to watch for as you're looking this year. So there, at the state legislature this year, there was some legislative bills introduced that would allow what we call MIWAs, Multiple Employer Welfare Associations, to come back in Indiana. You're probably going to hear a little chatter about that. Over the next 6-8 months, you'll have other people telling you, why aren't you looking at MIWAs, those sorts of things. We're watching it, but I'm not going to rush into anything here. MIWAs used to be popular in the state of Indiana back in the late 80s. And then a lot of the MIWAs went bankrupt, and because they weren't regulated properly. So the state of Indiana really took a hard stance, and pretty much to do a MIWA here would have required a miracle. For some reason this year, the legislator thought it was a good idea to bring it back up. It's received fairly friendly attention, but again, we're going to watch it for you. But if you're hearing chatter about it, just know that yes, we're aware of it. It sounds good on paper, but based on historical results going back several years ago, didn't work for most people. The other thing that's happened in Indiana is the state did approve a company come in called Jefferson Health Plans. Jefferson Health Plans will market directly to public entity employers. That's what it's for. It is a nonprofit. I will let you know that we are reviewing that at our corporate level. They're out of Ohio, and we are looking at using them in Indiana, so we probably will quote them for you at renewal. But it is basically a nonprofit, government entity only health plan that's been approved to do business in the state of Indiana. It's called Jefferson Health Plans. So I wanted to make you aware of that. We'll look at them as we continue to vet them for the next renewal.
How do they fit into the
They would step in as your reinsurer.
reinsurance?
Yeah. We wouldn't change anything as far as TPAs or networks or anything, but they could be a viable option for reinsurance.
And the first thing you talked about, Viva, what?
Yeah, so for example, the best one I can describe is if you were a bank in Indiana in 1980, you were probably in the Indiana Bankers Association health plan. And that was multiple employers that all come together and pool their health insurance funds. So what happens is in AMEWA, what happened, not to say that it'll happen again, but as this large employer plan, this MEWA plan had claims, if you were a healthy bank, you began to pull out of the MEWA because your claims would come down. And so what ended up doing is the groups that were unhealthy stayed in the MEWA spends more than it's taking in and it goes bankrupt. And that's exactly what happened in the 1980s. And it happened there were auto dealers, there were bankers, there were probably 150 MEWAs operating in the state back then. And all but 2, I believe, went bankrupt by the end of it. And so the state just said, we're not going to do MEWAs anymore, and then until this year. And so it's funny how we forget things, but we didn't change any of the regs. We haven't changed any of the funding mechanisms or anything like that. We just said, okay, now we're friendly to it again at the legislative level, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing for folks long term. And that's what happened. As people applied to come in, as a bank would apply to come in, they wanted everybody to come in, right? So they would underprice it and to entice them to come in, but because they were underpricing it, it didn't financially perform the way that it was supposed to. So then they had to kind of undo it all, and the state stepped in, the State Guarantee Association stepped in, and we got through it, but now we've forgotten about that, I think. So, but I do want you to know that you'll hear chatter about that. If I were a broker coming in to talk to you, I would say, oh, we got this new thing. So just know that it's out there. We're watching it for you. We'll keep you posted. So, any questions? Anything else? Okay. As I said earlier, we're probably about a month away from having our financial projection reports that we've been working on for you. So as those come out, I'll bring them down, show them to you, and walk you through them. You will then get them every single month going forward. So something to think about. All right.
The only other thing I had was on 79, the inappropriate coding charges that were caught.
Oh,
It seems
I'm
surprising
sorry.
to me that they would be that small out of that much was spent.
I do want to let you know of something that we are seeing, and I'll answer that in a second. We are seeing Memorial billing the same charges multiple times. Every time Unified gets an invoice or gets a bill, we have to generate an EOB or an explanation of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those EOBs are going to show that we've paid, that the claim has been denied. And it'll say at the bottom of the page that it's a duplicate claim, but your employees may or may not see that. So you may hear some chat, I'm sure you probably already have. And it is a result of Memorial billing us for the same thing several times. And we've talked to them, we've not gotten anywhere, but it's not just you, they're billing everybody.
Is the purpose that they weren't getting paid fast enough, so they send out a secondary bill?
I think
there's an issue.
they got an issue in their system, yeah.
Since they switched to this new system last July, think, I've had personally had these issues, so.
Yeah.
And I know Marky's.
Yeah, we've had several, and I actually sent out some notification to the employees about it because I'll get hit with some of them too, and
Yeah.
it's like.
I mean, an employee sees it, then the claims that, first thing they do is think we didn't pay, but it
Well,
is.
it clearly is defined on their duplicate charge, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if they
If you
look into it, they can see.
There's been a change in their billing system too, and that's escalated it, but it was an issue before that billing system started, and it's just gotten worse. So, working with them and hopefully that will be resolved soon.
That's just not on our medical or health insurance stuff, because our wellness committee, we're getting billed stuff we've already paid too, so it's,
There's
they've
definitely some kind of issue.
got an issue.
And then going back to your inappropriate coding, those are just, it depends on how it's defined. So the reason that made me think of that is because inappropriate coding would just be a procedure that is billed for the wrong diagnosis. And that doesn't happen very often because software programs do most of this stuff. That's why it's low. It doesn't mean that there's not inappropriate charges going through. That's just a coding thing. So, and again, most software packages would catch that and not allow it to happen. So,
I don't believe I have anything else.
No,
all right,
very
appreciate your
good.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. All right, we're gonna take a couple minutes, then we'll be back.
Angie? Angie? Congratulations.
Yeah, yes.
Looking forward to it. I bet.
Much longer is this one, so we have to go. Good to see you. So would you already breakfast?
Actually, medicine, I have to take it, then I gotta eat some, so sorry.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, you're good. I appreciate it. I'm sure meal that's good.
A little peanut butter sandwich didn't go very far this morning.
I just had a banana for breakfast and that or before I got here.
I normally don't eat breakfast, if I don't, I'll pay later.
We had a pretty big dinner last night. Had my mom over. Throat steaks, baked potato, big salad.
You stay for that.
Yeah, it was beautiful day out.
Yeah.
My son-in-law's birthday, we did the same thing.
I tried. It is fast. So 18 hours.
Oh, I
Five days.
Okay.
So it's decided, so right now.
How many hours do you have left?
Probably about half. I have coffee. Once I get busy, it's really.
You know you're hungry, but just to keep your mind on the word. Yeah.
Especially.
Mr. Wilson, 911 request for consulting services.
I forwarded an email that was the exhibit B from Ritter Strategic Services. I have reviewed it. I've had limited communication with him. I actually had a hard time getting this from him. He's busy. He was on vacation. He has offered to appear before the commissioners for any discussion. And I told him I felt like at this point it wasn't necessary. And I think it would be a poor use of our hours for him to travel here, appear. Those would be billable hours. I think if he were to if the commissioners would want him to make an appearance, maybe we could arrange it via a video chat or a Zoom call or something, do something more efficient. This is the same consultant that we have used in limited fashion on the design portion. And I'm asking that we be allowed to use his services for the duration of this project, that is all the equipment that is housed within the 911 center. From his proposal that I see, his rate has gone up from $125 an hour to $150 an hour for between last year and this year. It appears to be kind of a top to bottom situation. I did ask around and about the amount of hours contained in this, if this was a reasonable amount or not. Two different persons in professional capacities felt like that was a very reasonable amount, and that very typically consulting fees on that type of project would be for about 10% of the entire expenditure. And I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that figure as this. I think the billable amount is, from what I'm told, is reasonable. Up to $22,500 is a ton of money. I recognize that, but for us to not make a significant error in equipment purchasing, some of this equipment is incredibly expensive, and we need to buy the right stuff to get our job done. I'll answer questions as best I can.
The only one thing I looked at whenever I reviewed what you'd sent was if maybe it would be in our best interest to put a 100-hour cap on it, then at least it forces us in the future to come back. So he knows we had this much allocated for the project. If it's gonna go any further than that, we need to discuss it again because of the amount of expense. That way and as far as that 10% of the, well, we are also paying another construction person, and we are paying an architect fees on top of that. We're probably not as far from that 10% of it.
It's probably ends up being a pretty
Sure. I think it's probably in our benefit to bring him in. I definitely favor that. I just think we should probably start at a smaller cap. That's the only.
Well, yeah, I question, I think in the proposal estimated hours and then in parentheses not to exceed. Do they estimate they will reach that 150? I mean, that's kind of what it says to me. But
in discussion on the previous, on Exhibit A that we had used, his belief was that it would use the majority of that, and the not to exceed and what he thought were pretty tight together. So if he says not to exceed 150, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we get right up to that 150 mark.
And is that driven by your inquiries when you reach out to him or?
I think it's going to be just from his experience on doing nearly identical work for other 911 centers. So he has been a consultant for two very recent new 911 centers that I know of, and I'm sure far more than that. That's just ones within Indiana that I know of. I've talked to their directors. I bet he has a very good idea. He has seen our operation. He's been on site. He knows what vendors, he knows what equipment we have, phone, communications. I think he has a very good idea. I think if we say not to exceed 150, I think it's going to be right to that amount. If we do 100, which I'm certainly not opposed to, I think we're going to be coming back at some point and asking for additional time. I don't really know how that'll shake out, because I think the majority of this stuff will be done all right on the front end, because it's all going to be researching bid specs, RFPs. There's going to be, I think that almost all the work is going to be done almost immediately, long before we would be doing any purchasing. I think after purchase, I think it would be very limited. But I'm not opposed to, obviously, it's 2/3 right up front and 1/3 along the way. I don't think that's a bad plan either.
Because I think that you're gonna do, you've already done and you will probably continue to do as much as you know how.
Sure.
Within your competency. And it encourages him to be efficient and for you to be efficient.
And I guess that was my thought on it too, that if we didn't enter into a contract with him, we said, no, we'll do all this ourselves. And I understand your point on that. That's dangerous, maybe.
It's very, very dangerous.
You know, I don't know, but, not that we don't have confidence in your ability to do it.
Yeah, I'm a confident person, but I know I would make significant mistakes.
But,
in a
but
project
if we
like
don't
this.
call him, there won't be any hours.
Correct.
Um, and so then it kind of comes back to me, okay, you call him and he says, well, we haven't billed very many hours lately. Let's just, I'll spend
Yeah.
a lot of time, or I'll bill a lot of hours for this regardless of, you know, I'm sure they're reputable, but at the same time, you know, they can put more hours into it or less hours into it.
Well, and we may end up less, you know, because if I could take one item out of this project, if I could take audio logging, for example, and say, you know what, I'm gonna take that under my wing, and I feel comfortable with that one aspect, to be able to not use consulting services on that. And I'll reach out to vendors and do the work and have the time to do the work that's required, then that's work that he doesn't have to do. You know, we're
It's in the
kinda,
taxpayer's best interest to pay you less than $150 an hour to do the same thing.
yes, absolutely. And you know, we are gonna, the assistant director and I are attending a conference in June. The timing is very good for us to meet with some vendors. And maybe I'll have a better idea of things that we want to take off of this list, this Exhibit B list, and take out of his wheelhouse and take on ourselves. We'll certainly take on anything within reason, and I'm gonna work hard, but in the end, there are only so many hours in the day of my knowledge. That, you know, this is an incredibly complex project. There are certain aspects of it that I wouldn't even try to have an understanding of. I think I will understand concepts, but specifically the phone aspect of it, it is too complex. It is not worthwhile. I'm not educated enough, and I'm not going to try to pretend that I am. There's certain aspects of it we're going to have to lean on professionals and get professional opinions on. I'll reach out to our local people. I'll reach out to, you know, Matrix for IT solutions. I'll reach out to the county's phone, well, Matrix also for phone-based solutions. So there may be some portions of this that'll come out where maybe we end up at 100. I mean, I'd be happy if it would be far less. But.
Well, and I don't have a problem with doing the 100 and coming back, but at the same time, I don't want you to feel like I need to do this myself because we have to stay under this 100.
Sure.
And,
Well, if I need help, I will certainly not be shy about asking for it, whether it be to the commissioners or vendors, whoever. I think I'm enough of a realist that there are only so many hours in the day, and I do have limitations. And I think I'm probably taking a pretty, I have a lot of technical knowledge that I can put to use. The county gets that benefit because the sheriff's office trained me. And, you know, that's just the way it is sometimes. Sometimes you get an employee who's kind of knowledgeable, but some of this stuff is way above my knowledge and ability and experience.
Just as the project continues, there's new expense for something every week, and so we're, just want to be as aware of that as possible.
Sure.
So I think it doesn't hurt to start at a lower level, and if you come back and say, this is working really well, or I'm glad we didn't contract anymore with this guy, we're going to ask, you know, we can use those resources better somewhere else.
Okay. I will contact him back, have him send over a new exhibit, an edited Exhibit B for not to exceed 100, and then I'll bring it to.
Do you need it? Are you wanting to get him to work immediately? I mean, do we need him now?
I don't need it today.
Do you need him in the next 2 weeks? If you do, we can take action today. If not,
I don't think so.
if you do, we
I
can make a
don't-
motion to approve a contract in similar form for 100 hours.
I don't know what I would need him in the next 2 weeks for, but I will say this, you know, maybe I do. I need him before I work on the soft costs, which is waiting for me now.
So you can, if you're comfortable and you think that he'll work on the understanding that we're going to approve something, you can do that. If you're not,
It depends on the deadline on the soft costs estimates that we
have been requested. In looking at that, I need this consultant to work with me to get accurate estimates for those soft costs, because part of it is the furniture, and that's a significant portion of this project. Kimball has already reached out to console furniture manufacturers, so I think it is kind of weighty. I don't know. I don't want to hold the whole project up either.
Commissioner Brown, I'd be comfortable with saying we will approve this contract with the one edit of 100 hours as a maximum for the project. And then they can work on getting us one that I can sign outside of the meeting.
If that doesn't change the rest of the contract up there, I mean, the items listed as to what he will work with. Is he gonna wanna change that?
I don't know. The discussion we had before was, it is up for discussion. I think if we go forward with that as the understanding that, look, we're gonna see where we're at after 100, I don't think that's unreasonable. If he thinks it's unreasonable, then
They'll let us know.
I'll report back.
Okay.
Does
And
Mr. Schneider look at this?
he does not need to review the Exhibit B. The original contract that Mr. Schneider has already reviewed is the same as from the Exhibit A. So moving forward, probably in theory, the next time I'm here to talk about it, we would have an Exhibit C for
It's an
hours
extension.
additional, and it would just kind of continue on through the project. It's for simplicity's sake, so
We have Exhibit C because of
if
what
we're over,
doing here.
if we would be over 100, but we're gonna be super efficient and not need that, hopefully.
Or in the same vein, if it was 150, he wanted 153, he'd be back for Exhibit
We
C.
would.
So I'll move that we approve the contract on the condition that it is changed from a 150-hour maximum to 100-hour maximum.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So then if you get that from him,
I will.
then you can bring it in for signature.
I will. I'll drop it with Sandy, maybe.
That's fine. As long as you tell me where it is, we'll know where it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Quinn?
Good morning.
Morning.
Phone is yours, Stuart?
I am Anthony Quinn, prosecuting attorney. I'm here on behalf of the Du Bois County JRAC, our Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. I always get that wrong. I think Ms. Durloff had sent an email out to everyone, so hopefully you had a chance to look at that. She is more knowledgeable with regard to this than I am as far as the grant that she applied for and received. She's on vacation, so she couldn't be here today. So the ask is, we're asking the commissioners to create a new position for the project manager. Part of that funding was allocated for a new position. Project manager would be basically assigned to oversee the Du Bois County JRAC, facilitate our discussions, our development of new ideas and collaborations within the team. I guess just a brief overview, the JRAC essentially is a collaborative group of justice partners here in Du Bois County, which includes the fiscal body as well, the council, the commissioners, my office, the judges, sheriff's department, defense attorney, probation, community corrections. I'm sure I'm probably leaving out one or two participants. I think we're like 11 or 12 member organization. So that's kind of in a nutshell what JRAC is. It was statutorily created, something that we do have to do, participate in. We're fairly new. We haven't been in existence too long, so it's something kind of new to all of us. This opportunity came up, Mr. Earl jumped on it and was awarded the grant in a relatively short window there. So I don't know, Sandy, if you've received anything as far as that award yet or not, but
On the JRAC one?
Yes.
I have not.
okay. As far as timing as to when we'll receive that funds, I can't answer that for sure, but the intent is with this project manager, obviously there's been some discussions about, creating a lot of new positions. And I'm certainly aware of that and cognizant of that and agree with being cautious and moving forward with a lot of new positions within the county. I think the thought of this position within the group is it would quickly be determined within that 1 year whether or not it is sustainable or not. If this person that's hired can, acquire additional funding for not only that position, but other of the groups within the JRAC. I believe that we as a group, have a lot of ideas. Often it's difficult for us as department heads to have the time to follow through or write our own grants. So one of the things that we would look for the project manager to do is if, for instance, as prosecutor, there's a grant available to my office, I would have him or her potentially look into and write that grant on behalf of prosecutors. And the same for the judges and probation and corrections and so forth. There's lots of opportunities out there. We just sometimes don't have the time to follow through or seek out those grants. So I think that would be one of the exciting things about this position is having additional opportunities within the county to obtain or receive funding through grant writing. With that,
I believe for the length of time that the grant covers was approximately 14, 15 months,
yes,
somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So it's enough to pay somebody for that amount of time,
correct.
as well as their benefits, as well as training, travel, communications. The one thing I don't think that we talked about as a group was their office needs possibly, but I think we may even be able to, if they need a computer or if they need an office space or a desk or whatever they need, there may be some costs there, but maybe within that, I don't recall if we.
Yeah, I believe that it could, and some of that additional with the training would go for the team members as well. So there would be some training available for us as team members. Since Megan wrote this grant, I think the thought was maybe that the person would be under her kind of umbrella out at corrections. But certainly that's obviously up for discussion or whatever works out best for the county. But yes, it's I believe a 15-month paid through June of 2023.
March 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023.
Yeah. It is a short window, but as I said, I believe if it's useful, then it'll show itself to be so, and there'll be opportunities for additional funding down the road.
So the idea is to hire somebody now for this 14 or 15 month period. Hopefully extend that through grant, is
Yes.
what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, sir.
Extend that through grant for an indefinite period of time. Is there a plan B if the grants aren't available?
There is not. I mean, I think it would be the end of that position.
Okay.
Like I said, if the JRAC, sees that it is beneficial, obviously we'll do what we can to facilitate some additional grants, but I think it'll be upon that person to obtain additional grants to, extend the position into the future.
At this point, I think, unless one of the judges wants to make a comment, I think from me sitting on the board, I don't see a downside. Everything seems like an upside, and it gives an opportunity, as the prosecutor said, that if there's a project, an idea, or something that an office or one of the departments wants to do, this would be an opportunity to have someone to assist or to fulfill something that maybe there wouldn't be enough time for any of the department has to do on their own. I think it's, I support creating the position.
Well, it sounds like it's fully funded, or at least nearly fully funded. Like you said, there may be some staplers or something that we need to provide. Unless there's something I'm not seeing, and I don't know whether, Mike, you see anything, do you have any concerns from the council point of view or saying from the auditor's point of view?
Well, I mean, the only thing I was thinking, is there any way that that could be tied in with this person that we have to hire for the help grant? I mean, I know you can't use double grant money, but, I mean, it just seems like, and you know, you I know better than I do. It seems like this is gonna be difficult to stay busy. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm off, but, you know, we were gonna be sitting here facing this in another month or two to help get this grant person from help hired to fill the obligation of that grant. So, I mean, how are we gonna, you know, like, there's another space that we need to have someone for. Just seeing if there's any way that this could be tied in together. Because we don't even know that, like the health grant, we don't even know how many hours. They say 30 hours a week, you have to commit. You know, again, will this person be busy 30 hours a week? Yes,
And just on the surface, I don't see that working, but I don't know. I'd have to look at it. It would be two different focuses.
Is it two different focuses? We don't even know what the hell.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe you probably have a different type of person that would be appropriate for the JRAC than may for the other one.
I'm not familiar with the other one, so I'm not.
The help is the state through Oprah, we hire someone to help us do a strategic investment plan with our money, with a percentage of that, in partnership with Jasper, and then they give us an additional bump of funding at the end to implement some, whatever the plan comes up with, what is most needed or valuable for our area. So it's a person who is supposed to coordinate that process.
And is this grant for JRAC, is it a fixed dollar amount? In other words, could we extend this 14 months out? If we hired a part-time person, could we extend it out twice that long, or?
I don't believe so.
I think you
So-
get 30
so then-
weeks to pay,
so then
30
you-
days to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's what?
You get 30 pays, 50,
Right.
you have a certain amount of months. It has to be.
And it has to be expended.
It has to be
That's my
expended within
understanding.
that
That period of
15-month
time.
period, correct.
So then it goes back to this, for the person for the help grant, we're getting 20,000 there for that first year of coverage on that. I'm not sure how we bring all that, how that money would come together then. Yeah.
That's the difficult part,
Yeah.
you know.
So it sounds like this is fully funded for a full-time position for 14 months.
Correct.
And there's no other way. You can't hire a half-time for 28 months or something like that. So, you know, I don't see it working out too well with the other position.
I've been pretty involved with that one, the help one, and this one. I just think I would want the person they'd be focused on two different things. I think it's a good thought, and
And the timing, you know, and I'm still trying to figure out the timing on the help grant position. I've talked to somebody in Jay County. We're getting off onto a different subject here. Jay County, this sounds like it's going to be midsummer before we actually hire somebody for that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the timing here
This
is.
should be available anytime now, and I think the funds should be, as Megan had put in her thing, sometime in March, so we're already approaching the end of March, so we should have it soon.
the only thing that I think concerned me was it's not a fully baked position. We've never had one. We don't know exactly what they'll be doing, but I believe we will have plenty of office holders that will say, here's something I'd like you to run with. I mean, I'm not even intimately involved in the criminal justice every day, and I could think of things for the person to do it. I think we will fill their time.
Yeah, I agree. I think we, you know, as justice partners, will have plenty that we can keep this person busy doing for us.
And at least initially on that first month or so, there are requirements from the state that say they want you to do bylaws and just organizational things.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I support it. Judge Burkham, Judge McConnell, do you have anything to mention on the program manager for the JRAC?
No, I agree with you, so long as it's funded by a grant, to me, it's a no lose. You know, when might as well do it, take advantage of it, because we've got, got it paid for. I know, speaking personally, that, I'm already involved in so many different boards and committees and whatnot, that I think it would really help. I think everybody is. It would really help to have one person kind of spearheading that, as opposed to someone who has, everyone else has full-time jobs and is worried about their job. To have someone that would coordinate all of that, spearhead, I think would be a good idea. Otherwise, things just won't get done.
Right, it's like Judge McConnell, after you do all your caseload today, you apply for a grant.
Yeah.
And then implement the program afterwards.
The other side of that is they start doing more than what is presently being done. And then in 14 months, that position goes away. Where does that work?
Well, yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot more to do probably up front originally, just to get us all kind of organized and on the right track. And I think the need for it will probably decrease over time once we kind of decide what direction we're gonna go with some of these things. So I think that even if we would lose that grant at some point, we'd still be in a better position than what we are right now without something like that. So, to me, even if it's short term, it's worth it.
Judge Birkin? I absolutely concur.
And saying that you don't see any issues with the grant or the type of grant or.
I mean,
Okay.
she does have noted on here that this would be a PAT 4.
Or completely.
And the way I figured it would be $27.57 per hour. That's the salary she says, $1,930 by reason, just because you guys are gonna have to set the wage classification. And I don't know,
And that you did divide that out by more than a year.
I took the bi-weekly divided by 70, unless this is an 80-hour week job. I don't know.
Is the wage set by the grant or?
I don't know who set the wage.
It was
I'm
not
just,
set by the grant.
I'm just
It was
going by what
suggested.
she wrote. This is just the paperwork Megan provided you guys.
And there's no ceiling on the amount. I mean, what if we set it for $50 an hour? Would the grant pay for it?
I can't answer that.
It's within the amount, I mean, the grant was for $104,000, I believe, total.
I have 104,000 on here total.
Yeah.
How she budgeted it out.
So it was divided to facilitate the payment of the project manager along with the other training and additional funds expended from that. So it's not all being used for the project manager. There's some
She's
additional.
got benefits and health insurance and the salary, which is 81,000, on around 81,000. And then she's got consulting 8,000 and travel and training almost 15,000.
That was on an Excel, I think.
Yeah.
She
She
put that
said-
email.
I mean, she sent this one,
I do have it here. No, let me look.
Our thinking there was we understand that when looking for a person to fill such a position that doesn't have any guaranteed long-term prospects, we wanted to make it pay in a way that would be attractive. And I think that's kind of how we ended up in the range that we are.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm happy to move forward with the position unless you have further discussion you want to
No, I
make on it.
don't think so. I haven't found the downside yet. That's what I'm keep hoping for.
Keep looking for one.
Now, if this position does end after, how many months did you say?
14, 15.
And they're no longer employed, they will have the right to file employment off of us, and we have to come up with that.
Even on a grant.
There's the downside.
I mean, I'm just putting
Yeah,
it out there because we're gonna have to pay for
employing,
it.
yes. Okay, so I'll move that we create the JRAC Community Coordinator Program Manager position as a PAT 4 under the condition that we receive the funds from the grant and that the position will end when funding ends.
Okay, I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Any other discussion from anyone in attendance? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Now, it will be taken to the council.
Right. Any council approval. I mean, our motion is not any council approval, but
But we created the position, it's up to them to pay them.
No rush.
Okay, we are down to 11 o'clock. We're a couple minutes behind. I apologize for that. Judge Burkamp and McConnell are here for third courtroom judge discussion.
I'll come right up here.
So good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we're here today, as you probably received a while back, a survey as to the need for a third court here in Du Bois County. We've got those surveys. I would say that for the vast majority, it's all in favor. We're putting together our packet. Basically, the way this works is that in the summer study committee, this year they meet, make recommendations out of that, the legislative study committee for the courts. And then if it's recommended, then it would be put before legislatures following year, the budget year. So
But I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following. You create a packet, you give it to the study committee, and they make a determination if they agree that it's something to move forward or not. And they'll report back at the end of the day.
And so you can make this request every other year. And so we just believe that at this time that it, with our caseload and the way we're situated here in Du Bois County, that it's time for a third court. And it's just, I'm just going to show you where we're kind of at within Du Bois County. This morning, I just ran the 2020 census, counties listed by population. And so you'll see then that where I started with Du Bois County on I left out a couple pages. I didn't go all the way to the top and didn't go all the way to the bottom. But if you look starting at number 30 there, Noble County, 3 courts. As I said, I excluded some of the others. Above that is Henry County, they have 5. Dearborn County, 5. Grant County, Warwick County. Well, you'll see kind of where we sit. We are the largest county by population in the state of Indiana that only has 2 courts. Just below us, the next county is that has 2 courts is LaGrange County. And then you go all the way down to Whitley County, the 47th largest state, or by population, they're 47. That has 2. Davies County has, which is right next door, has 2, but they have a referee, a part-time referee, so they're really 2.5.
What's that mean?
A referee is, they have a referee because of their caseload. They thought that they just needed extra help. So actually their county was paying for a referee, basically a part-time judge.
Like a mediator?
No, part-time judge. He's here in small claims cases.
I've never heard it called a referee. I didn't know that.
They have basically the hierarchy. What we're asking for, just so you know, our request is going to be for a second superior court. You could make a request for a magistrate. Magistrate's not elected, be appointed by the judges, but is a full-time judge and for the most part has full signature authority, just like the judges do. Then you have a referee, which is, in this case, appointed by the judges, but is paid by the county. So magistrate above is paid by the state, the salary. But as you see, you go down, even get down to counties, all the way down to, well, look at some of those, almost half our population are being served by 3 and 4 judges. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, we have traditionally been one of, as far as the weighted caseload, the state takes our numbers, gives it assigns each case a minute value, and then you add that up and divide it by the number of days or minutes for the year, and they give you a weighted caseload. And we've traditionally been, we've been the highest fourth as far as judicial need, but I think in the last 10 years, we've not been below the 10th. So we're the top 10 in the state counties as far as judicial need. And so what we're asking today is your endorsement, a resolution from the commissioners that we're going to go in front of the council next week and ask for the same thing, for your endorsement in writing so that we can include that in our packet. It goes without saying, I printed off my calendar and I'd be glad to give it to you. I got an extra copy if you want to look at it. But you go through my calendar, and I'm actually gonna, so in June, you'll see I'm actually gonna take a vacation. I haven't taken a full week's vacation in 3 years. I've taken part of a week, but not taking a week off. So I'm gonna take my son fishing this summer in Canada, but so I'll be gone for a week. But when you look at my calendar, the first half day, if you come in a divorce or a civil matter and need a half day on my calendar, the first half day you're gonna find is in May 16th. If you need an all-day hearing, the first all-day hearing that I can give you is June the 15th to be a first setting. And those aren't even first settings, those are all set behind jury trials. So if we have a criminal jury trial like we did last week, that case is then bumped. They may have waited for 3 months to get a hearing. And then we have a criminal jury trial go. Now they're bumped another 3 or 4 months to get their next hearing date. And again, second set to a criminal jury trial. So, I mean, it's things that are hard to do when you got a calendar like that. Is just like Miss Brewer that was here earlier today. I've been trying to meet with her to go over a new co-parenting class that they have. And basically, I've asked her to either come in at 7 o'clock in the morning after hours or her lunch break, because in the last 3 weeks, I haven't had even an hour in my calendar between 8 and noon and from 1 to 4. And it's pretty common for us to go late in the evening on hearings because of timelines and juvenile delinquency cases and CHINS cases. We're setting those at 3:30 and having the fact-finding hearings 3:30 to completion, going through lunch hour on hearings. So it really is, just even the professional development, the things that, that one of the reasons we're asking for this grant is because I don't have time, Judge O'Connell doesn't have time, Anthony doesn't have time, nor does anyone else in the criminal justice system. So at this point, as I said, I think it's high time that DuBois County be considered for a third court. That's all.
Just for my education, when do we have a third judge here currently, like a special judge? What is that for? What are we doing?
Okay, so special judge, you see on my calendar, like, turn off this week's, I guess, but next week I've got, on the 1st, I'll be in, since 42, you can see it just says 42 DO2. So I will be in Knox County all day next Friday on a special judge case. So a special judge case is cases where I have a conflict, Judge O'Connell has a conflict, and so we need to have one of the other judges in our judicial district come in and hear the case. So that's a special judge. Now, a senior judge is a little different. I think there may have been some confusion on the surveys. A senior judge, they're not assigned to DuBois County. Based on our weighted caseload, we're assigned a number of days that we can use a senior judge. Now, one of the things is there's a limited number of senior judges. Fortunately, we have Judge Weiger. But really what he has been doing, at least for me, he uses up almost all his hours or time at this point, just been doing the conflicts because my private practice still have, divorces that come through, wills and so estates that I was involved in.
So he fills into a guy from Knox County, doesn't have to come here.
Exactly. So he's been kind of that conflict resolution person. But one of the things with him is that we can't use him for criminal matters, delinquency matters, which really would be really helpful, but we can't because of his relationship with the prosecutor. So Senior judges, you know, they're nice to have around to fill in, but as I said, I don't know that we want to put all our eggs in that basket. We don't want to rely on that. It really is time for a third court.
Is he the only senior judge that we utilize here in Du Bois County, or
The only one, I think you used Judge Meyer out of Keith Meyer.
Once in a great while.
Yeah, but they're, you know, kind of they're hard to come by. Some of them are doing it, you know, they have to have so many days a year to continue to qualify as a senior judge, and, you know, they're
They'll
basically,
do that.
yeah, and so they're not always available.
Did Judge Songer used to do that? Was he a senior judge?
He did.
And you, I believe in previous conversations, either one of you, you're saying that they wouldn't need a staff?
I think basically we can do this, I'll call it on the cheap. Now, if we get a superior to or a magistrate, there's the supplemental salary that the county pays. But other than that, I would like to think maybe some administrative, you know, costs between Judge McConnell's court reporters and my court reporters. I believe that we can allocate the resources and not need, we can do this for almost nothing for the county. We've already got a third court. We have the staff. I think that we can, because we're that busy. But if we get this third judge, we're going to allocate our caseload. And then, so with that, we'll be able to distribute employees to that third court. And we can do this for virtually nothing for the county.
So the workload for the existing staff doesn't increase, just the number of judges handling it, right? I mean, we're not having more crimes or more divorces.
It's certainly, you know, it's one of those things, the need is there. You know, other people in the county are, you know, come before the council and the commissioners and ask for a new hire. And this is the process for us to get that resource here in the county.
And I think I support it, so I'll say that first, but if we don't support it, the state could still give us another one anyway, right? I mean, or does it have to have the consent?
I would venture to say on past history, if we don't have support, we might as well not send it back.
Okay. Again, I'm not saying that that's the case, but I didn't know if the state made the determination of how many, I guess they make the ultimate determination of how many judges, right? Yeah. And that's why
Ultimately, it's voted by the legislature. They decide whether to get one or not.
And the facility is appropriate.
I believe we can allocate our caseloads. Obviously, that third courtroom wouldn't be sufficient for a 12-person jury for a large criminal trial. Probably, you know, maybe a civil trial, 6-person you could do in there, but.
But we use that third courtroom now, and on occasion, do we not, when Judge Weicker comes in, or is it?
Then when the special judges come in, so we're already using it.
We're already using it.
It's fully.
So it will no longer be available as a overflow facility.
Correct. But what you're gonna do then is you're gonna free up Judge McConnell and I's calendar, then we would be able to work, you know, scheduling if a senior or special judge had to come in on a conflict, and Judge Weicker was here as a senior judge, we would be able to, there would be time in our calendar that we would be able to find those days. Right now, we're just doubling up.
Could you tell me one more time what the difference between why a magistrate would be worse or better than a second superior court judge?
That was my question. What's the up and down side of that?
I think really, as much as anything, the magistrate is supervised by the judges and appointed by the judges. So.
So the sitting superior court judge would make that determination of who that person is.
We would probably.
It's not an elected position.
It's not an elected position. If we got a second superior court, it would be an elected position, just like circuit and superior are now. So it would, I guess the nice thing about that then is the voters would have a say in who their judge is versus a magistrate, or the judges appoint who they want.
But the magistrate would not be a superior or a circuit, under the superior or circuit, but under the the combined combination of the two of you?
That's the way we would propose it. The legislation could be a magistrate under, I think most counties though, kind of share that.
Any comment from the clerk? Or prosecutor?
No, I can tell you, I can attest to the workload that they do. It's hard to get a few minutes from the clerk's office to either judge. It always works, but they're busy. From my perspective, I don't have any weight on it otherwise, but they're busy.
Yeah, I would second that. Not only that, but they're, receiving calls in the night as well from us for search warrants and things as well, which, so, yeah, I think there's clearly very limited scheduling time for the courts. It's definitely a need, in my opinion.
So from an expense standpoint, like you mentioned, I think we only input $5,000.
We do $5,000 plus benefits, so it's what, point, whatever.
Benefits, no, we don't get any benefits.
It's your matching FICA, it's your matching FICA, Social Security, that's what I mean by benefits.
No insurance. Your insurance is.
Yeah, every January I have to send
You mean
the
for the
10,000
for the
plus-
5,000?
for the $5,000.
Yeah,
We have to match that. So I send that up every January.
Hey, a dollar's a dollar.
What's that?
I said, a dollar's a dollar.
Well, I don't want to mislead them to think
What's
it's only the five, it's.
$5,000?
Under $7,000 for each of those. So,
It's not even that.
No,
It's very small.
do you have a, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, I support it as well. This is not something that just came up this week. This has been going on. I've heard you guys talk about this for a number of years already. And, yeah, it's a process and it's time to start the process.
That's the other thing, as Judge Burkamp said, they study it in even number of years and vote on it, odd number of years. So the first chance to vote on it will be next year. And if they vote on it next year, I assume if it's approved, then they have to set an election. So it's probably, no matter how we do it, at least 2 years down the road before we have an election even.
Do you have a resolution that you borrowed from another county or would it be one that you said you needed a letter of support from
What
us?
do we need to sign?
I didn't know if you
I
had
didn't
some.
draft one, I mean, if you're asking, I'd certainly be glad to draft one for your signature.
So say that or Mr. Schneider could, either way. He's out of town this week as well. I think you'd have my support moving forward. It sounds like you have Commissioner Promises, so once we have that letter from you, I guess we can consider the letter and do a formal approval then, unless you want us to. The thing is, I hate to say we will sign a resolution having not seen the resolution, but I think
Well, if you want to, I don't care if you draft one, if you want to, but I would like to know that there's support there because we really want to get this in the mail sooner than later. The legislative session is now wrapping up, so we don't know how many times or when at this point the summer study session will be meeting.
we needed submitted yesterday.
Not yesterday, but
Sort of, yes. I'm fine to proceed however.
I mean, we can make a motion to offer our support, pending the actual letter that is presented to us. I mean, yes, I support the process.
So just to get it on the books, let's just say that I'll move that we support the creation of a third courtroom judge and the accompanying documentation to go with it.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. So then, whatever that is drafted, is drafted by, if you want it done quickly, it'd probably be better done by you, because Mr. Schneider won't start on until next Monday. That puts out another
And
week.
that was, if that's the first thing he works on.
Sure. And then you can just send it by email to the three of us, and we'll, unless there's just something awful there, I mean, I don't see why we've given support.
Yep.
So I thank you for coming in. I appreciate you continuing over the years to work towards doing this. I think it's just in the best interest of the justice system to get people through and as speedy of a trial as possible. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck.
CASA surplus items.
Um, I sent you a note about it, so
So Commissioner Brahms, with these items, what I did yesterday, it reminds me a little bit of what Commissioner Hostetter said previously, that somebody had an excess piece of equipment, and he said, well, we could get $40 if we sent it into this company, but we didn't know, we didn't know how, we didn't know how that would work, or how that would get the money from that person or that company back into DuBois County. But I did look yesterday, and for things like laptops, there are a number of firms out there that do pay for these items. I think currently we have to get them wiped.
right now I erase them with what I have, as long as I'm able to do that. And then we recycle them through the solid waste district.
So right now, do you know, back in this, do we have to pay for that electronics? If we have a laptop, does the solid waste district pay $1 to $20 something to pay each one of those? Is it kind of a wash?
I don't know about what that cost is, but I know if you come in as a customer, you're paying $1 to get rid of it.
So like with these, I checked two different sites. One of them said the one that had the most information on it, like something 450 something on there. I typed in HP Generation 3 450 whatever it was, and there one site was like $40 some, another one was $30. And is it worth our time and
How do we
effort?
get there, and how do we ship it, and how do we?
Well, they send you a box, they send you postage, and here's how I think they probably get you. You send them 5 of these things in their postage paid box. You aren't really out anything. Once they get your machines, they say, here's what we will offer you. They will give you, after they examine them, they will give you a quote. And if you want them back, then you gotta pay for the shipping to come back. So that they'll probably give you a very low offer once they have it, but you're still getting something.
So it's not an
I don't have
offer.
time for that.
Well, they give you a quote up front, but I think that if you don't like, for example, if we get one and it's got a broken screen, that's worth less. If it, like one of those, it's fully functional, but she dropped a phone call on some Zoom meetings, and it was, that one you probably get more money than you get for a different one that's broken. I just didn't know if it was.
I don't know who has time to manage something like that.
If we had a help person that has 10 extra hours a week, I'm just saying that it may be in our best interest, it might be in our best interest to keep the laptops for at least a short period of time. We can stack them back here, so we have 20 of them, and if it works out to send them in, I'll continue to look at it on my time. Great, if not, Carla can still take them. But I mean, we get, I don't know, we get 15 of these a year that we discard. And if we could get $20 a piece out of them without much effort, it might be worth our time. For today's purposes, we can just declare them surplus, and she can bring the laptops up here.
Well, they do bring them up, and I delete them, and then they sit in the back room until we get a stack, and then Carla takes them.
So I guess to simplify things, I'll make a motion that we do declare the 4 items on this list for CASA as surplus.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. So now we have surplus items. Generally, we say what should we do with them, and we recycle them. But I think the reasoning is with older computers, there's $40 worth of gold and other items that are inside of these for connections, and people can tear them apart and recover the valuable thing, or they can resell them if they're a decent unit. Anyway, I would just say, before you give them to Carla next time, let me know, and I'll continue to look into it. And as far as the larger things, the consoles, we can just recycle those. I think there's not much of a market for that. I think laptops would be more manageable, or tablets, those kind of things. Again, it's one of those things, I'll spend my time doing it, don't throw them away just yet. Unless you have a problem with that.
No.
Okay.
I agree, we don't want to put that load on to somebody to manage all that, but you want to, at least at this point.
Yeah, I'll at least check it out.
And if it turns out to be something that is a good thing, and then we have somebody to do it, well, okay.
They say throwing away computer systems that are, most of them are junk. That's why we're getting rid of them. Some of them just get upgraded.
I do have to say, at one of the meetings before, the health department had a few mini towers to be declared, and you guys declared them, we were gonna get rid of them, and I had Matrix up there, and they said, oh, we can reuse those for your Publix. So I did grab them back, and we're putting them back into service, so I did do that.
Again, I'm always looking at a way to be cheap and as tight as we can.
Legal process, I mean,
Well-
we declared them surplus and now they're not surplus.
They're not surplus, because I didn't know, I mean, I was going by what he said.
Yeah.
That they were
Sure.
no good, and we're gonna repurpose them,
I'd say as long as they get back on the inventory, then
which
they're fine.
we will do that.
It's like buying anything or anything else. Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's at the end of our scheduled agenda. Anybody from the public have a comment?
I have a few.
Is there anyone local that can look into those laptops to see if they could be repurposed, or
We've tried different.
somebody
things in
that
the
works
past.
part-time or works for a company that does part-time on the side, that they could look and see, if this is workable or it's not, to look in?
I've not found anybody, but then,
Right. There's IT people that work for, say, Kimball, that does stuff on the side that, they can look at them and say, well, this one's completely out of commission, this one's not, this could be repurposed, or,
well, and that's what I did when I had Riley, he does a monthly visit, and I said, can you look at these, or how do I erase them, is what my question was. He goes, I don't think you want to, he said, I think we can reuse these, and I said, great. Because some things I know how to erase, and some things I don't.
So we have our tech people look at them.
okay,
But I see your point. If even if we had a contract with some guy who's just a tinkerer, he said,
Sure.
I'll give you $10
Absolutely.
for every unit you give me.
right.
Maybe they're worth 52, or
Right.
maybe they're junk. Again, that's $10.
And he could tell us, immediately whether, it's feasible to work on, or if it's,
Well, we can get that through our
Sure.
T contract.
okay, but I didn't know that you had.
Right.
Seems like something like that would already exist if there was a need for it. I mean, at solid waste, we get, I don't know what the number is, but we get many, many electronic devices like that. And seems like if there was a need for that, there would be somebody doing that.
Even if you couldn't repurpose it for where it came from, say at Georgetown or something, that we could donate it to a student or something like that, that would.
We've tried some of that in the past.
No, that didn't work either, okay.
Especially like with our Windows 7, people don't want those when
Sure.
they're 6 years old.
Sure.
The mini towers just happened to be Windows 10, and he said, I could repurpose those. They're about this big.
We
I
can
like that.
donate
Maybe
them to someone that could install the Windows 10 or whatever, that. They
Good
wouldn't
idea
have
that-
that expense of purchasing, say, a laptop, computer, or whatever, to a student that is in need of whatever. I'm just thinking out loud, I don't know, but I'm just trying to think of, you talked about the expense sending it someplace, and there's no way in guarantee that you're gonna get that money when they look at it, and, if we could just keep it local, that somebody could look and say, hey, this one's completely shot, this one's not, or that we could donate it to somebody and repurpose it another way instead of coming back here, or, I don't know.
Even if we had a couple that if all it was good for was WordPress, I think maybe a middle school kid could type up his report on it.
Exactly. I don't know, that's just an idea, that's just.
Yeah, we'll keep that idea alive. Every time that we declare things surplus, that,
Right.
again, I'm a unique person with this. I think some people are like, well, it's old, it doesn't work, get rid of it, that kind of thing. Is there some way we could squeeze $5 more of value out of something?
Or somebody that could really use it.
Yeah, that maybe good. So just something that we'll keep on the.
Have to consider the cost benefit.
That's right. You want to pay $10 to get $5 worth of use out of it.
The other thing along computer lines is it's time to replace the highway, so Steve and I are gonna start working on that process.
I think they've been in and talked and would put some stuff together, so they keep gonna get back with you.
So that's a situation where your units are working, but we have them.
Well, depends what you define as working. They get slower and they get more unstable, I guess.
Yeah.
And it takes longer to do processes because they're 6 years old and the technology is not there anymore.
Well, if I would try to get online with mine, you could almost take a nap. before-
Sometimes it takes
Yeah, it just-
minutes to several minutes to get them
And it
back
just-
up and going.
It slows everything down.
So it doesn't work for our purposes, but just for this general conversation, it may help someone else's purposes.
And while we're on the topic of like surplus or used equipment, I'm gonna be looking here soon to doing something with that old brine truck that went down. We still have it in the lot. So what I was looking at is possibly doing a silent auction on the thing, advertise it in the paper, and somebody wants it, they can put in a price for it. We'll come up with some sort of a basis for it, if that works for you.
Is that again clearing through, Mr. Schneider? I'm fine as long as it's illegal.
Kind of along the same lines, I know that you have looked at, calling, well, just online, websites online where you can purchase, and they will also purchase as well, right? And you can, is there a method you can put it out there and to those people? And you say, you know, this is, we have this available, what's it worth to you?
Yeah, we're gonna start researching it now because it's tucked in a corner. We just don't have a whole lot of room, so the quicker we can move it,
Get it out of there.
the better, so.
Okay, okay.
But it did. Anyway.
I'm sorry.
Talk about it.
Private conversation,
It's
so.
different topic.
I did want to mention that the plat books are in.
Mhm.
As of Friday, we had 2 days, 75 of them were already sold. That's how fast they're going out the door.
What's in there, Beth?
And I got a call over the weekend saying, please hold me one in case you run out. And I'm like, we will not run out yet.
What's in there that you can't get on the GIS site?
People like to be able to see it on paper and read it.
Okay.
And it's a historical record too.
The lady that called me this weekend said, can you put one aside for me? My husband still has his on the bedside table, and every time something goes off, he looks in that book to see what area and where, and
Well,
which is fine.
no, I do that too, but I do it on my phone.
We were unsure how many to order, but
And it was in the paper, so that's probably why.
somebody was there at 8:03 Thursday morning. And I put out the press release like at 3:30 in the afternoon the day before.
I saw a press release.
I mean,
No,
we've been asked over the last several years, and we could not get them during the pandemic. So, I mean, they're there. But I kind of wanted to show you it. The dress code, I did not put on this agenda because Nick wasn't here, so I'll have that on the
I
next
hope it'll
one.
be open.
Well, he asked me not to put him while he was here, and Kitty could not be here, she's on vacation, so they both asked to have it on the next agenda. I kind of wanted to update on that.
Commissioner, would you like me to look at the book?
just along that line, yeah, well, along the line on the dress code, Kitty sent out that,
She did an amendment, and I added the verbiage on the bottom.
so,
I don't know if I've seen that.
She sent it out like right away.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It came out shortly after our last meeting.
I don't think it might be on the meeting, but I'll copy it for you if you want.
So if there's any, assuming Nick and I support it.
That's fine.
Oh, that's
Assume
your
that.
commission.
Let's just assume that
Okay.
for now.
Thank
If there's any,
Bye, guys.
changes you would like to see on that before.
She said she'll make me a copy, because I may have gotten it right away and just not realized what it was.
The only other thing, Duo is live, the multi-factor authentication, we totally turned it on. We had 2 straggling employees
I
Friday,
saw an
and
email with one,
we got it go live, so. It is
and it has
in
not
place.
affected me
I,
in any way.
every time I do it, I push through it, I mean, I've had no issues.
I don't have to do anything,
It'll ask you when it wants you to,
okay?
I haven't had it either, so.
but I'm an administrator, I'm different than y'all.
think he did have, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so
If
we
your
got
password's current, it's probably gonna let you be fine.
go right there. All right, so dress code. Health, you already kind of went into that earlier. Still, heck, for the last month, I haven't gotten anything else about our cohort or when we're supposed to send our team up there. I don't know, I think more than I did. So when remember there was a 3-day event they want us to go. We need a 10 community members. Yeah, the help part. So I still haven't received anything additional from that. As soon as I get it, if I get it, I will let you know.
Okay, and yeah, and along that, I reached out to a couple of the counties up in, what do they call it, consortium, not consortium, cohort more. And, one of them replied that it really wasn't helpful in what they were doing. The other one hasn't replied yet. And I've talked to Marky about it. You know, I'm not sure when we want this person to come online, if you will, or to be employed. Do we want to wait until after we go through those things?
Or is it best to have them along for community development?
I get that, but once you employ them, you have to have something for them to do. And you don't want to start with other things, you know, extra things that Sandy's got or that Marky's got or we've got. We don't want that to be their only job for a while.
I guess it wouldn't be bad if it was a couple days, but you don't want them to be around for 2 months doing that.
Right.
So we probably just need more guidance again from the state of when we will start having the.
Like I said, I talked to Marky and he's kind of backed it up, like if we want to hire them 1st of July, we, you know, probably do our want them on board 1st of July, we'd probably do our interviewing May, late May, something like that, which means we need to, probably within the next month or 6 weeks here, start to, pin down exactly the job description and that sort of thing. But anyway, that's what we're at.
And with this is just
Yeah.
for me to review again, right?
Just,
Nothing we need to talk about.
that was a kind of a formality, I mean, it was a good meeting, but formality, we had to get together and present that and that's for the entire county. The course, the plans, the dreams, the hopes of all the departments.
Got it. Great. Anything, do you have any other business today?
I don't think so.
Any other business from the owner? Nothing we need to sign? Okay. We'll close the meeting then.
Attorney, on the road school? Do we have a report on road school?
It happened very well.
It happened.
Actually, that was a spring break up there, wasn't it, Brent?
Most of it,
Spring
yeah.
break.
Yes.
And